If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 151, Chapter 149, Kagami opened up the door. After the fist bump with Kuroko, Kagami felt a surge of newfound determination coursing through him. As the game continued, akin kept dominating with his state and proved to be an insurmountable force. However, despite the repeated blocks each time Kagami attempted to break past akin's defense and score, a smile adorned his face. His teammates on the court and the spectators in the stands couldn't help but be captivated by the spectacle in front of them. He has a good team, hey. Alexandra muttered fondly while looking at Kagami, who seemed to have fun in the court. Nijimura also nodded in respect to the scene in front of him. These two players were definitely formidable and worthy of respect. Still, though it seemed to most people that akin was still thoroughly in control of the game, Nijimura could feel bubbling pressure emanating from Kagami that slowly climbed up, rivaling that of akin. Suna also felt it as he thought, he's worthy. With each thwarted attempt, Kagami didn't feel frustration or despair. Instead, a sense of exhilaration overcame him. It was as if with every block, every clash against akin's overwhelming skill, he felt like he had drowned in the depths of a powerful current. However, rather than feeling drowned, Kagami felt more alive than ever. As time passed, Kagami found himself standing before a massive door in the recesses of his subconscious mind. The pressure exuding from it was massive, but instead of being intimidated, Kagami smiled. With a resolute expression, he extended his fingers and, with a burst of strength, broke the door open. Akin, on the other hand, had sensed this change but dismissed it as he was confident in his ability to maintain control over the game. However, akin's confidence faltered when Kagami's figure suddenly thwarted his attempt to break past the defense. Kagami's swat at the ball was so precise that it caught akin off guard. The ball sailed away, leaving akin to turn toward Kagami with a look of disbelief on his face. Kagami's expression remained completely still for the first time in the game. Dark red sparks streaked across his pupils, clearly indicating that Kagami had entered the zone. The air around him crackled with intensity, and an invisible pressure emanated from Kagami, filling the entire court. Both players from Siren and 2 Academy, as well as the spectators in the stands, were captivated by the unfolding spectacle. Miyoshi felt a shiver down his spine, thinking, did I just jinx myself by saying those words earlier? Is he entering the zone, too? He knew Kagami had elevated his skills to a level matching the generation of miracles. However, not everyone could reach the zone. To think he entered the zone as well. He thought with a trembling hand. Kagami entered the zone. Even Hyuga, Siren's captain, shared the disbelief. The rest of Siren felt the same, a shared thought emerging, we can still turn this around. Akin was initially taken aback before he smirked as he sensed the change in Kagami's demeanor. This moment shattered akin's previous notion that the game against Siren was merely a warm-up. It didn't take long for akin to regain possession of the ball, and Kagami marked him closely. The pressure in the air was palpable, even though Kagami's play wasn't overtly aggressive. The atmosphere was charged with an intensity that seemed to affect every player on the court. Akin grinned as he felt the pressure emanating from Kagami, with dark blue streaks radiating across akin's pupils. As akin dribbled the ball, Kagami's eyes effortlessly followed his every move. It was slow and steady. However, everyone could feel the intensity and power behind his dribble without even facing him directly. Suddenly, akin's pupil sharpened as he abruptly changed the pace, bursting to the left and breaking past Kagami's defense. In an instant, akin found himself sprinting towards the basket as he leaped to unleash another thunderous dunk. However, a dark red shadow suddenly materialized in mid-air. With his eyes sparked with dark red streamlines, Kagami soared to meet akin at the peak of his jump, blocking akin's attempt with a resounding clash and making it impossible for akin to double clutch. The ball that was redirected by Kagami's block flew toward the basket before it bounced back to the court. The unfolding scene caught Izuki off guard, his eyes wide with surprise as everything happened in a flash, and he truly couldn't keep up with these two players' movements. Izuki! Hyuga's urgent shout snapped Izuki to reality just in time to see the ball hurtling towards him. As Izuki caught the ball, Kagami gestured for a pass. Though still overwhelmed by what had transpired before, with a swift and accurate throw, Izuki sent the ball flying toward Kagami, who had positioned himself strategically for the pass. As Kagami caught the pass from Izuki, he responded with an explosive burst of speed. Kagami weaved through the court, leaving akin in close pursuit. The two academy players, locked in their defensive formation, braced themselves for the impending clash with the incoming Kagami. As Kagami approached the defensive line of two academy, he effortlessly broke through their attempts to stop him. With akin closing in, Kagami leaped for a dunk. However, just as he was about to complete the move, a dark blue figure materialized from behind. It was akin. His speed allowed him to catch up with Kagami swiftly. The stadium fell into a momentary hush as akin soared towards Kagami, attempting to block the dunk. However, Kagami remained calm, and as akin's hand almost touched the ball, Kagami's hand, which was initially raised for a dunk, smoothly changed course. Instead of a conventional dunk, he shifted the ball behind his back, mimicking akin's signature move. The unexpected move left everyone on the court in disbelief. The ball left Kagami's hand in a perfect shot from behind, arcing gracefully towards the basket. The resounding swish broke the silence in the gym as the ball sailed through the net. The crowd cheered, and their disbelief turned into admiration for Kagami's incredible display. Whether it was Rakuzan High in the audience or Kaijo High, sitting alongside Kage Tora, who had coached Siren High before the Winter Cup, everyone was watching in shock at the recent turn of events. The same disbelief echoed among the Fukuda Sogo players. Nijimura couldn't help but voice his thoughts. Am I the only one seeing Kagami making the most of their one-on-one? Senior, I was thinking the same thing, Agiwara added, swallowing nervously. Tsuna just smiled and remarked, it's not surprising. His words grabbed everyone's attention, making them turn toward him. Alexandra, in particular, looked at Tsuna with curiosity as she wondered why he found the situation predictable. Tsuna glanced at his teammates and then back at the ongoing game. He sighed, saying, Taiga is fighting for his team, and Daiki is fighting for himself. That's where they differ, and that's what matters. The Fukuda Sogo players were surprised by Tsuna's unexpected remark. Their expressions transformed into smiles as they shifted their gaze back to the court. Even Haizaki couldn't help but smile before realizing it and quickly looked away, trying to wipe the grin off his face. Chapter 152, Chapter 150, Into the Depths. The third quarter of the game unfolded as an exclusive showcase of Kagami and akin's individual prowess, with the rest of the players becoming mere spectators to the intense showdown. Kagami, who was fueled by the zone, had continued to dominate the court as he kept scoring points for Siren, while akin responded with consistent scoring, although he had been occasionally getting blocked by Kagami. The scoreboard ticked upward with each passing moment, Siren consistently closing the gap with two academy. Akin, who still had a perpetual grin on his face, found himself sinking even deeper into the zone. In his subconscious, he felt like he was being drawn further into the depths behind the door. As Kagami once again broke past akin's defense, akin shadowed his every move with uncanny precision. The gymnasium held its collective breath as Kagami leaped for a dunk, with the crowd anticipating another spectacular dunk. However, akin suddenly let out a chuckle, with his excitement shooting up through the roof as his presence changed and let out an overwhelming presence, like a mountain, crushing down on Kagami. Kagami, who was midair and eyes widened in surprise, felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Akin's figure seemed to grow even more imposing, and the pressure became suffocating. In that instant, akin, who had gotten deeper into the zone, blocked Kagami's dunk with an almost effortless motion. The gym erupted into gasps and exclamations. As luck would have it for Siren, the blocked dunk sent the ball sailing towards Hyuga, who stood watching the spectacle with a blank expression. Hey! Confusion marked his face for a moment before realization dawned. He had the ball, and an opportunity to score. Sakurai, who had been grappling with Hyuga under the basket, was momentarily caught in the same blank state. However, as Hyuga snapped back to reality, he realized the chance at hand. With a swift and decisive motion, he prepared to shoot. Sakurai seemed to regain his composure as well, seeing Hyuga went into his shooting motion before he reacted a moment too late to block the shot. Hyuga released the ball, and it sailed through the air with precision. The referee's whistle pierced through the moment, signaling the end of the third quarter. The players on both teams turned their attention to the scoreboard, their eyes widening as the numbers illuminated the current state of the game. The scoreboard displayed 100 to 101, with Siren now leading by a slim margin. The stadium erupted into cheers and exclamations as the realization set in. Siren had managed to not only catch up but also keep the lead in this fiercely contested battle. Both teams returned to their benches, and everyone in Two Academy was looking at akin in astonishment. Imioji wore a similar expression as he pondered, it's astonishing that Kagami could put pressure on akin even when he entered the zone. But, what was that in the last second? He gazed at akin, a shiver running down his spine. Imyoji believed that being in the zone was already the pinnacle, yet akin seemed to be improving somehow. He didn't quite grasp it, but it was positive news for their team. A showdown between players in the zone wasn't something ordinary folks like them could easily step into. They simply lacked the qualifications for it. In the audience, Fukuda Sogo also engaged in a similar discussion, with everyone turning to Tsuna, who was also capable of entering the zone for an explanation. Well, let me break it down. Simply put, the zone has different levels. Akin just reached the next level of the zone, he explained. Najimura's eyes widened in surprise as he asked, so, you're saying he delved deeper into his zone? Exactly. Tsuna nodded. Everyone was quite surprised to learn about the concept of levels in the zone. It dawned on them that if Tsuna knew about this, did it mean he could also go deeper into the zone? The shock on everyone's faces was evident as they looked at Tsuna. Tsuna seemed to notice their speculation and shook his head, indicating he didn't want to elaborate. He was more interested in other things as his gaze shifted to Kagami and Kuroko, and he thought, will they be able to open the next door? On 2 Academy's bench. He could endure this long even in the zone? That's impressive. Harasawa nodded, watching akin with admiration. Back when they faced Fukuda Sogo, akin's body gave out before even getting into the 4th quarter, and it was his sheer determination that forced him to stand and continue playing. However, this time, Harasawa could see that akin would still be able to maintain the zone until the 4th quarter. Well, he might not last until the end, but he should at least hold up until the middle of the quarter, Harasawa thought, wearing a contemplative expression. He considered taking a timeout once akin was out of the zone to reassess their strategy. On the sideline, Momwa looked at akin with a small smile. She had always been concerned about him, but seeing akin enjoying the game more than anything else made her feel relieved. Meanwhile, on Siren's bench, a hush enveloped everyone. Despite the sweat, they could sense the intense focus Kagami radiated. This guy hasn't said a word, but it's the first time I've felt nervous around him, Kiyoshi thought, shaking his head as he observed Kagami, whose mind seemed solely fixed on the game. Hyuga sighed and said, I guess there's nothing we can do at this point. Everyone nodded in agreement with Hyuga's words, sighing as they turned their attention to Kagami. Although there was some concern about akin blocking Kagami's dunk in the last second, they all wore smiles as they gazed at Kagami. From the very beginning, Kagami had never let them down. Now, as they approached the final quarter, that trust remained unwavering. The team had full confidence in Kagami's abilities. The referee signaled for both teams to resume their positions, marking the beginning of the last quarter. Hyuga's gaze intensified, and he rallied the team, let's get back. Everyone followed Hyuga's lead, their eyes reflecting unwavering determination. This quarter was the ultimate showdown, determining who would advance to the next round. 2 Academy players matched that determination. Imyoji, who would usually show a polite expression, was replaced by a serious look. Let's determine the winner, he declared. Kuroko clenched his fist in determination, glancing at his trembling feet and whispering, just a bit more. Chapter 153, Chapter 151, Battling until the bitter end. The 4th quarter kicked off with an immediate clash between akin and Kagami, the court once again becoming the stage for their intense battle. The ball quickly found its way into akin's hands, and as he delved even deeper into the zone, he seemed almost unstoppable. Akin effortlessly broke past Kagami's defense, leaving the ground raised with Siren's defensive formation rendered completely powerless to stop him. As soon as he reached enough distance from the basket, akin soared toward the basket and executed a thunderous dunk, with Kagami incapable of preventing it. As the clock ticked away, Kagami was undeterred by the previous exchange as he attempted to return the favor. His eyes were sharp as he forcefully created an opening with his speed and broke past akin's defense. However, just a second after, he felt the looming hand of his formidable opponent almost grazing the ball out of his reach. Still, Kagami was no pushover as he reacted instantly and stepped back before bursting forward with matching speed and changed his direction in a dazzling display of agility. Just as Kagami leaped for a dunk, akin's imposing figure arrived once again. In a swift and seemingly effortless motion, akin blocked Kagami's attempt, leaving the crowd in awe of the spectacle. The back and forth between Kagami and akin intensified with each passing second. It was clear that akin had taken advantage this time, with 2 Academy leading the scoreboard even with such a small margin. Imyoji kept a close eye on the scoreboard, noting their narrow lead of 117 to 116. "We can't afford to lose focus now," he reminded his team. The fourth quarter was halfway through, and signs of fatigue were becoming evident after both players entered the zone for such a long time. Amin's improvement is clear. Stamina-wise, he should outlast Kagami, Imyoji mused, observing the intense battle between their respective aces. If Amin and Kagami entered the zone simultaneously, Imyoji was confident that Amin's stamina would prevail. However, Imyoji still couldn't deny that Kagami himself was impressive to enter the zone that long. "It was our first time knowing he could enter the zone, but he was actually lasting longer than Amin during our match against Fukuda Sogo." Aida watched from the sidelines as her gaze fixed on Kagami, his jersey soaked in sweat. "Looks like his hard work's paying off," she thought, impressed. In the weeks leading up to the Winter Cup, Siren underwent a rigorous training camp in the mountains under Keijitora's guidance. One unique training exercise involved a modified version of a tag team, with players divided into police and criminals. The twist lay in the mountainous landscape, demanding both agility and endurance as the police aimed to catch the criminals. As the training kicked off, Kagami's capability and sharp instincts turned the tag game into a one-sided game. Regardless of the team, Kagami seemed to be unstoppable. What was supposed to be a challenging exercise for Siren turned into a display of Kagami's dominance. Observing the match, Keijitora reminisced, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Hey? Why do you want me to stop playing?" Kagami's perplexed voice echoed at the base of the mountain. In response, Hyaga delivered a swift smack to the back of Kagami's head, a visible vein throbbing on his temple. "Because it became one-sided with you on either team, you dummy!" he exclaimed. Kagami merely twitched his lips in frustration. "Well, what am I supposed to do while you guys are having fun? Sleep and wait for you all to finish?" Kagami grumbled, earning wry smiles from the other Siren players. "Well, don't worry about that." Aida chimed in suddenly, capturing everyone's attention. Beside her, Keijitora playfully patted her head, earning a smack that sent him tumbling to the ground in a comical pose. "Papa, I'm not a kid anymore." "Please don't do that again," Aida huffed, puffing her cheeks in annoyance. Keijitora nonchalantly picked himself up, the others seemingly unfazed by the familiar sight. He then presented Kagami with a can of beer, saying, "I want you to get a whole box of these cans. I placed them on the other side of the mountain for you." "Hey? Isn't this training pretty much the same as what I've been through before?" Kagami inquired, his face reflecting confusion as he recognized the familiar setup. Keijitora casually shrugged, thinking, "Like father, like daughter, I guess. The difference lies in the terrain you'll be training. You have to climb over this mountain and descend the other side to get that box," he explained. Suddenly, his eyes turned sharp, causing others to gulp nervously as he added, "But you can only take one can at a time." Kagami sighed at the challenge. However, determination sparked in his eyes. Having benefited from similar training before, he believed this wouldn't be any different. "All right, then." He was confident the payoff would come later. However, observing the dirt on Keijitora's pants, Kagami couldn't help but ask, "Hey, did you climb up the mountain to place that box?" The question surprised everyone, and they turned their curious gazes toward Keijitora. But Keijitora simply lifted a keychain featuring the infamous donkey logo and smirked, "Nope, I put it there using my trusty Vuri." Keijitora's revelation elicited a chuckle, but Takuchi just shook his head at Keijitora's eccentricity, refocusing on the ongoing match. As the game progressed, it became evident that both Amin and Kagami were approaching their physical limits. Holding the ball, Kagami couldn't ignore the fatigue creeping in. He thought, "Entered the zone after him, but why does it feel like I'm already running on fumes?" Glancing at Amin, Kagami noticed signs of exhaustion in him as well. Yet, it was clear Kagami's stamina was depleting faster than Amin's. He dribbled the ball carefully before he paused as he took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he reopened them, the intense spark had totally vanished as his gaze returned to its usual calmness. Amin was surprised as he wondered, did he give up? But sensing the same intensity from Kagami, he shook his head. After a quick self-analysis, he realized he couldn't last in the zone until the end of the fourth quarter. Amin then took a deep breath as well, stepping out of his zone. Their gazes held a similar determination as both thought, "I want to keep playing against him until the very last." Chapter 154, Chapter 152, Unyielding Persistence. They've stepped out of the zone. Imyoji was taken aback as he realized this. However, he then widened their eyes, noticing their showdown's intensity didn't diminish. Imyoji could even feel his body having goosebumps all over, feeling such intensity coming out of them as he thought, they might have been out of the zone, but to think that they still have such an intense desire to play against each other. Harasawa on the sideline seemed to notice this as well, as he exchanged a knowing look with Imyoji as he walked back to 2 Academy's bench. Momwa, who saw this, couldn't help but tilt her head as she asked, "Have you requested for the timeout already, coach?" "No, it wasn't needed," Harasawa said as he glanced at Amine and Kagami. Considering their intense focus, he thought it was best if their face-off was uninterrupted. He looked at Imyoji, who approached the others as he spoke, "Besides, we have Imyoji on our side. I trust him. He could react accordingly if anything happened." Momwa widened her eyes in surprise before nodding. She glanced at Amine as she made a fist with her hand and thought, "I'll trust you on this. I know you're going to win." She cheered on Amine silently. Kagami, who was dribbling the ball carefully, felt the weight of Amine's pressure on him. In a burst of speed, Kagami executed a crossover move to the right that left Amine momentarily off balance. Seizing the opportunity, Kagami skillfully maneuvered past Amine's defense. However, Amine instantly reacted with lightning speed as he adjusted to Kagami's movement and forced Kagami to step back. Amine was unyielding in his defense. However, Kagami remained focused on his mind, racing to think of a way to break through Amine's guard. Kagami took a deep breath and with a swift motion, he subtly shifted his form as he executed a powerful stride to the right. Amine, who was anticipating a crossover move from these movements by Kagami, adjusted his defensive stance accordingly, ready for the expected maneuver. To Amine's surprise, Kagami's move was a clever fake. With a sudden burst of speed, Kagami veered to the left, leaving Amine momentarily off guard. The slight widening of Amine's eyes captured the surprise at Kagami's unexpected change of direction. In the blink of an eye, Kagami had broken past the defenses of 2 Academy, his powerful strides carrying him toward the basket. Even without the zone's heightened abilities, Kagami was clearly still a monster at the court. As his hand was poised to slam the ball through the basket, Kagami couldn't contain the surge of determination and confidence. "We'll win this! 2. He exclaimed, the echo of his declaration resounding through the court. "Not so fast there, buddy." However, a familiar voice cut through the momentary triumph. Amine's figure seemed to materialize seemingly out of nowhere. With impeccable timing, Amine's hand reached out with precision and blocked Kagami's dunk attempt. The ball sailed towards the backboard and bounced away, making Kagami grit his teeth in frustration as it was very close. Quickly reacting, Wakamatsu snatched the rebound and swiftly passed it toward Imyoshi, who was ready to transition to the offensive. With an immediate burst of energy, Amine surged forward, catching Kagami off guard. Imyoshi seized the opportunity and passed the ball precisely in Amine's direction. With a newfound vigor, Amine wasted no time. He exploded with even more speed, deftly weaving through Siren's defense like a walk in the park. The crowd echoed with the anticipation of another powerful dunk as Amine leaped toward the basket. However, in a surprising turn of events, Kagami's figure suddenly appeared in the trajectory of Amine's dunk. Amine clicked his tongue, realizing Kagami was attempting to return the favor. Kagami's hand was hovering in the air, attempting to block his dunk. Still, Amine was called the ace of the generation of miracles for a reason, as he made a slight mid-air adjustment, shooting his iconic formless shot from a seemingly impossible angle. A grin played on Amine's face as he witnessed the disbelief in Kagami's expression. "Got you, Siren," he declared with a sense of triumph. "No. We got you." But just as the ball left Amine's hand, another figure emerged, surprising both Amine and Kagami. Kyoshi had executed a perfectly timed block, intercepting Amine's seemingly unstoppable shot. Amine's surprise mirrored Kagami's, and for a brief moment, the court fell into silence before the crowd excitement surged out through the roof, filling up the entire stadium. Kagami looked at Kyoshi as he spoke. "That was a good save, Senior Kyoshi." Kyoshi shook his head as he spoke, "Thank you, but we need to focus. We are only 2 points away from securing the game." Kagami was taken aback before he nodded with seriousness. As the game progressed, the spotlight remained fixed on the intense duel between Amine and Kagami. Each player could skillfully breach the other's defense, yet they proved equally adept at thwarting each of their finishing moves. This has led the match into a captivating stalemate. Tension gripped both teams as the game approached its climax. Two Academy noted the advantage of their narrow lead as they fortified their defense. They knew even just maintaining the stalemate would secure their victory. Conversely, Siren found themselves in a predicament. Aware of the slim scoreline favoring Two Academy, 117 to 116, they understood that their only path to triumph lay in relentlessly pursuing points by fortifying their offense. In another clash between Kagami and Aamine, Kagami was aided by Kyoji as they successfully foiled Aamine's attempt to score as the ball sailed out of the court. Suddenly, the referee signaled for a substitution, which drew the attention of both teams to the figure preparing to enter the game at this crucial moment. Wakamatsu expressed disbelief, muttering, "Is he a cockroach or something?" The two Academy players shared the sentiment, and Aamine, eyeing the newcomer, thought, "What are you planning this time, Tetsu?" It was Kuroko. Struggling with his physical condition, Kuroko's eyes showed a mix of determination and grit. Siren players observed him as excitement light up in their eyes. With unyielding resolve, Kuroko mentally declared, "Whatever it takes, I don't care. I'll win this, even if it's the slimmest chance." Chapter 155, Chapter 153, Moment of Truth. Akashi chuckled unexpectedly in the Rakuzenhai seating area when Kuroko returned to the game. Confused, the others turned to him, and Kotaro asked, "Captain, what's amusing?" "Nothing's funny, just finding this game especially interesting," Akashi replied, his eyes lingering on Kuroko. A sly glint flashed in Akashi's eyes as he pondered, "Show me, Tetsuya. Your determination." Over at Kaijo High, there was a surprise as Kuroko returned to the game. "Didn't you say he wouldn't come back without a plan?" Kasumatsu questioned Kais, who nodded with certainty. Frowning, Kasumatsu noted how Kuroko utilized his misdirection overflow, demonstrating the secret behind his misdirection to Two Academy. He muttered, "So, what exactly is his plan?" Excitement filled Agiwara as he pointed at Kuroko, turning to the other Fukuda Sogo players, "See, I told you he'd come back." He chuckled heartily, genuinely pleased that Kuroko remained as stubborn as ever, a bright smile adorning his face. "He's truly the most persistent person I know, hey." Nijimura acknowledged Kuroko's resilience but couldn't quite grasp his plan. With a serious expression, he turned to Tsuna, asking, "What do you think he's planning, Tsuna?" "I don't know." "What?" The revelation left everyone in Fukuda Sogo staring at Tsuna in shock. His admission of uncertainty was unexpected, given his usual air of knowing everything. Seeing their expressions, Tsuna shook his head with a sigh before he spoke, "I'm not all-knowing. And I certainly can't read what's on Tetsuya's mind." Tsuna pondered the possibilities, having a few guesses on what Kuroko might be planning but no definite answers. "Well, I have a feeling Kuroko might pull off his misdirection again this time," Tsuna mentioned, raising eyebrows around him. Mochizuki tried to figure it out but couldn't come up with an explanation. He tilted his head, asking, "How is he going to do that?" Daiki and Taiga's presence was grabbing everyone's attention in the entire stadium. Both of their presence combined was literally a giant beacon of light. And Tetsuya was someone who'd feel more alive under such a bright light as he was a shadow, Tsuna said. He glanced at Kuroko, who conversed with his teammate as he added. Even if he couldn't totally nail his misdirection, Tetsuya was one sharp guy. I'm sure he could spot even the smallest opening and drilled a hole out of it. "Welcome back, Kuroko," Hyuga greeted Kuroko and gave a nod. The others also nodded at him, happy to see Kuroko back. As the game was gearing up again, and everyone returned to their spots, Kuroko turned to Kagami and silently mouthed a few words. Kagami's eyes widened in surprise before he nodded. On Two Academy's side, Imiyoshi had this gut feeling that Kuroko was scheming something. He had signaled the others to go all out against Siren's defense and grab any chance that might pop up during the duel between their star players. "I don't know what you're planning, but we've got this game," he declared, checking the clock. The game was on the brink of ending, and they held the upper hand by taking the offensive stance at such a crucial moment. Turning towards Kuroko as he approached, Imiyoshi dropped his usual polite demeanor, fully alert while keeping a close eye on Kuroko. Kuroko remained silent as the game continued, with each player on the court intensely focused. The heightened concentration was palpable even in the crowd, and their excited shouts echoed. The game raged on with the ball passed with precision toward Aamine, and the crowd once again erupted in cheers. With Kagami still on his mark, akin dribbled the ball with breathtaking speed. He burst past Kagami's defense in a split second, leaving the frustrated Kagami to click his tongue in response. Izuki and Kiyoshi, who had managed to get out of their marker, had positioned themselves to intercept akin. However, akin reacted with a quick shift of pace and effortlessly broke through their defensive line, leaving Izuki and Kiyoshi momentarily stunned by the sheer speed of his movement. He's inhuman. Yet, their efforts bought precious seconds for Kagami to regroup and attempt another defense. Still, akin was completely unstoppable as he executed a precise crossover to the right, exposing an opening in Kagami's defense. Miyoshi couldn't believe what he saw and frustratedly shouted, they knew akin wouldn't pass the ball and threw everything to stop him. Right at that crucial moment, a figure emerged from akin's right side, his hand striking the ball to get it out of akin's hand. Miyoshi's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized Kuroko had slipped out of his marking. He exclaimed, "Fu*K, I was careless. He vanished on me like a ghost." Using his subtle presence and misdirection, Kuroko seemed to have seized the opportunity. This only worked because Miyoshi had focused so much on him, and with just a slight distraction, Kuroko exploited that shift in attention. Akin seemed to have sensed the incoming threat with his heightened instincts and instinctively stepped back. Kuroko's outstretched hand was there to steal away the ball. Siren seized the momentary pause as they continued their relentless pursuit. Hyaga's figure appeared next, attempting to steal the ball away. Though akin was momentarily delayed, he reacted immediately by rotating his body to the left and burst forward with incredible speed, shattering Siren's defense. "Is this guy even real?" Hyaga couldn't help but exclaim in disbelief as he stared at akin's figure. However, unbeknownst to akin, Kagami had already anticipated his movements. With impeccable timing, Kagami appeared in akin's path, his hand swatting the ball out of akin's grasp. Akin's eyes widened in disbelief at this as the ball sailed away in Sakurai's direction. Seeing the ball heading his way, Sakurai's blank expression turned pale as he anxiously pondered, should I shoot or pass? I'll shoot this. But Siren players, however, seemed to have different plans. They swiftly moved forward, catching Miyoshi's attention as he quickly scanned the court. A figure appeared in the direction of the ball, prompting him to shout, "Sakurai! On your left!" Sakurai's eyes widened in surprise as Kuroko's hand promptly pushed the ball forward with his ignite pass to Kagami. Miyoshi felt a rush of urgency as he hurriedly went after Siren's players. Despite his flustered state, he seemed a bit relieved to notice a figure reacting faster than the rest. That's it, in the end. Our ace is still the top dog. Miyoshi remarked that akin had swiftly positioned himself to block Kagami's advance. Chapter 156, Chapter 154, title at the end of the chapter. I'll win this one, Kagami. Akin's loud proclamation echoed through the court. As expected, if I was alone, I'll definitely lose. Kagami thought while glancing at akin's solid defense. He still kept his composure, with his mind racing for a way to get through. He slowed his pace as he took a deep breath before his eyes suddenly sharpened. He suddenly changed his pace as he crossed over to the right, to which akin reacted, making Kagami break into a sweat. However, he quickly shook off the doubt, stepping back, and suddenly changed his direction. Akin, who was still with his confident grin, also responded swiftly, anticipating Kagami's every move. In a surprising twist, akin realized that although Kagami's body had moved to the left, his hand seemed to push the ball to the right. A sense of disbelief crossed akin's face as a familiar figure, Kuroko, materialized in the ball's path. "It's you again!" The exclamation escaped akin's lips as he realized Kuroko's involvement. Kuroko looked determined and resolute as he assumed his passing stance, then launched the ball soaring towards the basket. "No, akin. We will win this match." Kuroko's words cut through the air, with the court brimmed with anticipation as the ball soared up in the air. Akin's frustration was palpable as he clicked his tongue in response to Kagami's sudden burst of speed towards the basket. He wasted no time in giving a chase, determined to thwart Kagami's scoring attempt. "Not on my watch, Kagami." Kagami soared up in the air as he grabbed the ball in midair and went for a forceful slam dunk. Akin was equally imposing as he extended his hand to block Kagami's attempt. However, something seemed amiss. Akin's realization dawned as he observed Kagami's overpowering strength and the peculiar dark red spark streaking across his pupils. Kagami had, once again, entered the zone. Am I losing? The thought couldn't help but flash through Amin's mind, accompanied by a sense of disbelief. Not yet, you motherfu***. But just as Kagami's hand seemed destined to score, a sudden shout pierced the air, breaking the tension. Wakamatsu materialized beside Amin, his hand intercepting Kagami's in a last-ditch effort to prevent the dunk. "I'll ***king send you home, Siren." Wakamatsu's vehement declaration echoed through the court, signaling a fierce determination to resist Kagami's offensive onslaught. The members of Siren watched with wide-eyed disbelief as Wakamatsu's swift intervention halted Kagami's dunk attempt. Damn it! Kiyoshi, who was racing to the scene to offer support, couldn't suppress his frustration, realizing he wouldn't make it in time. Amin was initially astonished by Wakamatsu's sudden appearance but quickly adapted to the situation. "I don't care anymore. I don't want to lose." Together, their combined strength seemed sufficient to thwart Kagami's scoring effort. However, in this critical moment, they sensed Kagami's hand twitching fervently as if he were struggling to reclaim control. "Shit! What the hell?" Wakamatsu exclaimed, recognizing the familiar gesture. Aida, who was seated on the Siren bench, shot up in surprise with a nervous expression. She couldn't believe what she saw as Kagami made a subtle move. Has he finally mastered it? Ah, he really nailed it at the last second, hey! Aida observed the turn of events, breaking into a smile. With their combined strength, Kagami realized he couldn't make it as his hand forcefully swatted the ball back into the court. And the one who was receiving the ball was a figure they least expected. The unexpected recipient left everyone in shock. Tetsu. Amin's widened eyes reflected the surprise that rippled through the two academy players. As Kuroko grabbed the ball, he subtly adjusted his form and straightened his back as he gripped the ball with both hands in a distinctive manner. His sharp gaze fixated on the basket as he confidently declared, "I told you, Siren will get this. I knew you were up to something. Unfortunately, I'm anticipating this as well. Kuroko. This match is ours." A swift figure materialized in front of Kuroko, leaping to block whatever move Kuroko had planned. Hyaga's eyes widened as he recognized the newcomer, Imiyoshi. "I don't know what the hell is up with that weird form of yours, but your ball won't get through," Imiyoshi proclaimed, meeting Kuroko's determined gaze head-on. Akashi, who was observing the unfolding scene, wore a subtle smile as he commented, "You can't stop that shot." Mibuchi, who heard Akashi's remark, was puzzled as he had opened his mouth and was about to voice his confusion. However, the entire stadium erupted in shock as Kuroko, who was resolute in his stance, propelled the ball toward the basket. To Academy 1. Imiyoshi smiled as the ball were coming right into his hand. However, to his horror and utter disbelief, the ball that just sailed out into the air from Kuroko's hands seemed to defy the laws of physics. Just as Imiyoshi's hands were about to make contact with the ball, it vanished into thin air, leaving nothing but a mystifying void in its wake. What the hell was that? Wakamatsu couldn't help but blurt it out, his face expressionless as he tried to grasp what was happening right in front of him. The gymnasium fell into a momentary silence as spectators and players alike struggled to comprehend what had happened. Then, as if materializing out of nowhere, the ball reappeared midair as it continued its trajectory toward the basket. The sight was reminiscent of a phantom, elusive and unpredictable. Imiyoshi was totally caught off guard by the surreal turn of events and could only watch as the ball sailed away, evading his attempted block. That was Kuroko's phantom shoot. Akashi spoke with his eyes flashing with excitement. His smirk lingered as he observed the ball gracefully swishing through the net. Simultaneously, the referee's whistle pierced the silence, signaling the end of the game. He was thoroughly entertained by the game in front of him. The stadium fell into a hushed awe as spectators struggled to comprehend the inexplicable events. What just happened? Siren won. A wave of exhilaration quickly replaced the confusion. A single enthusiastic voice broke the silence, setting off a chain reaction. Siren actually won against 2 Academy. No way! In a matter of moments, the entire stadium erupted into cheers and shouts of excitement, filling the air with electrifying energy that mirrored the astonishment and elation of the spectators. Title: Phantom Shoot. Chapter 157, Chapter 155, Asking for a Favor. Late at night, a teenager with blue hair, sporting a Siren high jacket, gazed up at a towering 5-star hotel in the lively city of Tokyo. "Oh, you must be Kuroko, right?" A voice brought him back to the present, and he turned to see 2 teenagers coming toward him. "Yes, that's me." Tetsuya Kuroko. Nice to meet you both. Kuroko then gave a polite bow as he introduced himself. The tall teenager, his long black hair reaching his chin and his eyes strangely gentle, offered a smile as he introduced himself. Oh, nice to meet you too. I'm Ryo Mibuchi. And he's Kotaro Hayama. Mibuchi then gestured to the other teenager. Hayama, with curiosity written on his face, asked, Oh? Aren't you from Siren, Kuroko? What brings you here? Yes. I'm here to meet Akashi. Kuroko nodded. Hayama's eyes widened in surprise, and he looked to Mibuchi, who confirmed it with a nod. Mibuchi added, Akashi mentioned your arrival today. He should be in the lobby, waiting for us. Follow me, I'll lead you to him. Mibuchi said, motioning for them to enter the hotel. Kotaro casually draped his arm around Kuroko's neck, giving the impression of closeness as he fired various questions at him on their way to the lobby. Entering the hotel lobby, an unusual hush fell, and Kuroko could hear the soft sound of their own footsteps as they approached Akashi. He noticed Akashi engrossed in a game of shogi at the central table. The other guests seemed hesitant, not wanting to disturb his concentration. "Sei, I've brought your guest," Mibuchi spoke in a hushed tone. Akashi looked up, briefly glancing at Kuroko. Kuroko felt a bit tense under Akashi's gaze. "Tetsuya, hey? I was curious why you wanted to meet me, but..." Akashi spoke slowly. Then, he turned his attention to Mibuchi and Hayama, saying, "Could you please leave us alone for a moment?" Mibuchi and Hayama nodded without hesitation, leaving Kuroko and Akashi alone. Interestingly, the other guests followed suit, clearing the area. Kuroko observed the peculiar situation with calmness, though a subtle unease lingered. "Have a seat, Tetsuya." Akashi seemed to sense Kuroko's discomfort but brushed it aside, extending his hand in a gesture for Kuroko to take a seat. As Kuroko took his seat, Akashi rested his hand on his chin, deep in thought. He spoke, "No matter how many times I thought about it, I couldn't understand why you came to me. So, Tetsuya, what's your purpose for coming to our hotel and meeting me?" Akashi's eyes gleamed with interest. Kuroko was the last person he expected to seek him out. Hearing the question, Kuroko pushed aside any discomfort. His gaze lit up with determination as he replied, "I've come to ask you for a favor, Akashi." Akashi's eyes brightened even more with his curiosity reaching its peak. "Could you please teach me how to shoot?" Kuroko finished his sentence, surprising Akashi a bit. "What did you want me to do?" Akashi frowned upon hearing the request. Kuroko looked down, wearing a guilty expression as he explained, "I originally intended to approach Kazama, but he's the one who pointed out my specialty and has been offering insights without even being asked. I don't want to bother him no more." Akashi felt the corner of his lips twitch, but he maintained a poker face. Kuroko might not have realized it, but Akashi fully understood that what Tsuna had told Kuroko wasn't exactly what Kuroko had perceived. Akashi didn't delve into the details, considering Kuroko essentially his test subject for the ideal small forward on the team, ultimately resulting in the final prototype, Chihiro Mayuzumi. However, the fact that Tsuna was the first person Kuroko thought of made Akashi feel a tad uneasy. Kuroko continued, "That's why there's no one else besides you who has guided me in the direction of refining my misdirection." "Sure, let's give it a try," Akashi responded after careful consideration. He glanced at Kuroko, whose eyes lit up with excitement, silently thinking, "Don't regret this later, Tetsuya." Akashi understood that due to Kuroko's physical limitations, shooting conventionally might not work for him. He shook his head, recalling the night Kuroko had asked him for help. Glancing at the court where the Siren players surrounded Kuroko, looking pleased with the result, Akashi felt a sense of detachment. The crowd remained energetic, their focus fixed on Kuroko. Akashi couldn't help but think, just as I expected, he's come up with something flashy again, hasn't he? "Let's go, we have a game to catch as well," Akashi said, rising from his seat. The others followed suit, walking out of the stadium. "Ah, finally! I got bored of watching." Nebaya expressed his excitement. Mibuchi gently shook his head at Nebaya's comment before glancing at Akashi. Recalling the night when Kuroko approached their hotel and noting that Akashi seemed aware of Kuroko's new technique, Mibuchi wondered, was he the one who taught Kuroko that shot? "Haha, I've been eager for this since the opening ceremony." Hayama joined Nebaya's excitement with a hearty exclamation. On the other side of the audience, in a partially empty section with only a handful of people scattered. So, Siren took the win, huh? That was quite surprising. Nijimura expressed a hint of surprise in his tone. Having witnessed Ayamine's incredible skills firsthand, he recognized the improvements he had made since then. Even from the stands, Nijimura was certain that facing Ayamine again, whether he was at his best or not, would result in Ayamine wipe the floor clean with his corpse. Shaking his head, Nijimura observed Ayamine's expression of disbelief on the court, thinking, I suppose playing solo only takes you so far, huh? While it was undeniable that Ayamine at his peak would effortlessly outshine the entire Siren team with his skills, Kagami's presence changed the dynamic. Though Kagami might struggle against Ayamine alone, with the support of the Siren team, it was enough to catch Ayamine off guard once in a while. Let's head back, there's nothing more to watch, Tsuna's voice suddenly rang out. He got up, strolling towards the exit gate. Nijimura didn't question it, he simply stood and followed, like a loyal follower. Despite the confusion among the others, who expected more matches, they trailed along. But isn't Rakuzan still playing? Agiwara inquired, his head tilted in confusion. Nijimura shook his head in response, they've got the game in their bag already, there's truly nothing more to see. Agiwara nodded in agreement, saying, yeah, now that you say it, it makes sense. Tsuna smiled in response, casting a glance at Siren. In his thoughts, he said, Siren, huh? See you in the semi-finals, then. Chapter 158, Chapter 156, Advancing to the next round. The referee's whistle pierced through the air, signaling the end of the intense battle between Siren and 2 Academy. I lost, again. Ayamine muttered as he could only stare at the scoreboard in disbelief, his eyes flicking to the numbers that displayed Siren's narrow lead of 117 to 118. 2 Academy had lost by just 1 point. A silence descended upon 2 Academy as the reality of their defeat settled in. Ayamine found himself grappling with an indescribable feeling in his chest. By a single point, the margin of defeat added an extra layer of complexity to his emotions. I lost to Siren, and now I won't even get a chance to play against Tsuna, Ayamine muttered, glancing at the now empty Fukuda Sogo seats. Turning his attention to the Siren players, their jubilant expressions created a twinge in his chest, stirring a complex mix of emotions. The shared happiness among them left him with a sense of longing. Tetsu really outplayed me, huh? Looks like he's got a solid team now. The rest of 2 Academy mirrored Ayamine's disbelief, their faces expressing a mix of frustration, anger, and sadness. Imiyoshi sighed in acknowledgement of the complex emotions enveloping his team. All right, guys, Imiyoshi began, his voice carrying mixed emotions. We gave it our best out there. His words resonated with the players, and a sense of reluctant acceptance began to settle in. In stark contrast, the Siren players were filled with joy and excitement on the opposite side of the court. Kuroko. How did you pull off that shot? That was an amazing shoot. Hyuga was so thrilled that his excitement caused him to tremble. Putting his arm around Kuroko's shoulder, Kagami laughed, I figured it out when you told me to pass the ball to you the second you got back. You were hiding this technique from us. Right after Kuroko came back into the game, he had whispered these words to Kagami, surprising him. Yet, Kagami always trusted Kuroko, so he followed through when he knew he couldn't make it alone. Kuroko grinned, saying, honestly, I wasn't sure I could make that shot. Even in practice, I only landed 4 out of 10 attempts. What? Kuroko's admission tempered their excitement, eliciting nervous chuckles. Ha ha ha, the important thing is that we won, right? Kiyoshi chuckled awkwardly, scratching his head. The others joined in the awkward laughter, which gradually turned into genuine amusement shared by the whole team. All right. Let's get ready for the post-match lineup. Hyuga said with a sigh. Despite the surprise of Kuroko taking a risky shot, Kiyoshi was right. Ultimately, what mattered was that they had won the game and were moving on to the next round. Ah, Captain. I'll go meet Ayamine first, Kuroko calmly stated, his eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. Hyuga nodded approvingly, acknowledging Kuroko's decision. The team was still brimming with triumphant energy as they made their way to the bench to celebrate with their coach. I'll come with you, Kuroko. Kagami spoke as he joined Kuroko in their approach towards Ayamine. Sensing their presence, Ayamine turned to face them, his expression revealing a complexity of feelings. Tetsu, hey. Ayamine acknowledged, his gaze fixed on Kuroko. Can you stop making that face? It's making me uncomfortable seeing this side of you. Kagami couldn't help but express his discomfort as he remarked with a noticeable frown. Akin frowned at Kagami's remark, his emotions swirling beneath the surface, yet he remained silent. I'm not looking for a fight, nor did I mock you. You're someone I looked up to. Losing sucks, but it's not like we will never face each other again. Kagami shook his head in response. The sincerity in Kagami's words took Akin aback, and it was similar to what he had heard when he lost against Fukuda Sogo, as he couldn't help but let out a chuckle. You're right. He admitted, a hint of reflection in his eyes. Kuroko silently extended his hand for a fist bump toward Akin. This made Akin perplexed by the gesture. What are you doing, Tetsu? You still haven't returned my fist bump back in Tiako, Kuroko calmly replied. What? Who cares about such a thing? Akin scratched his head awkwardly but still extended his hand to reciprocate the fist bump with Kuroko. Shortly after, both teams lined up, going through the usual post-match routines before exiting the court. In Two Academy's changing room, the mood remained somber. Everyone stood in a line before Miyoji and the other third years. Harasawa leaned against the wall, leaving the situation in Miyoji's hands. Well, I guess that's it. It's time for the third years to leave everything in your hands. Thank you for everything. Miyoji conveyed with a genuine smile, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the end of their journey. He then turned his attention to Wakamatsu, declaring, and I will appoint Wakamatsu as our new captain from now on. So, make us proud. Hey? Wait, why me? Wakamatsu questioned. Disbelief was evident in his voice as he pointed at himself. In response to Wakamatsu's surprise at being appointed captain, Miyoji calmly probed, What? You don't want to? Wakamatsu quickly clarified, It's not that I don't want it. It was just a bit too sudden. His hand unconsciously scratched his head as he grappled with the unexpected responsibility thrust upon him. Miyoji sighed, casting a glance at the team. Well, it's something that we have to do sooner or later anyway. Besides, we lost the game in the first round, so it will be our last time playing together. Sakurai widened his eyes in realization. The weight of the third year's emotions became apparent, and he couldn't help but notice a slight redness in their eyes. Frustration filled his heart as he looked down. Of course, they felt it much heavier than us. This is their last year playing in the tournament. Miyoji's hand landed on Wakamatsu's shoulder, offering a comforting pat. He opened his eyes slightly and remarked, Well, I'll leave the team in your hands, Captain. Wakamatsu sighed in acknowledgement as he nodded solemnly. As the responsibility settled on him, he recalled an issue as he turned to Miyoji with a pressing question, Captain, I don't know how to handle Akin like you do. What am I supposed to do, then? Miyoji's response was a shake of his head, deflecting the question. Instead, he asked, Do you hate him, Wakamatsu? Wakamatsu didn't hesitate to answer, Yes, I hate him. His frustration stemmed from Akin's disrespect toward the senior players and his blatant disregard for the team. Miyoji acknowledged this with a nod before posing another question, Still, who do you think is the ace in our team? Wakamatsu frowned at the unexpected shift in the conversation. He answered hesitantly, It's Akin, obviously. Miyoji smiled as he nodded again at Wakamatsu's answer. That's right, as long as you get that, you're good, he said slowly, and Wakamatsu nodded. Miyoji then chuckled, catching everyone off guard. Well, here's a pro tip for you. Since you'll be up against the generation of miracles in the future, remember that to take down a monster, you need another one. Wakamatsu's eyes widened in realization as he was silently repeating Miyoji's words. The acknowledgement of the generation of miracles' capability as monsters sank in. He pondered, I guess that's why he asked about Akin, as the only one who'd stand a chance against the generation of miracles was someone from the same group. Miyoji briskly wrapped up the conversation, declaring, All right, that's it. Let's pack our stuff and go home. However, the momentary lightheartedness dimmed when Sakurai informed him about Akin's absence, and Momwa left to find him. I guess we'll have to wait for them. Chapter 159, Chapter 157, Yasen High. Yasen's up against Kachiyama, hey. Agiwara mumbled, recalling the presence of one of the generation of miracles in Yasen High. He turned to Tsuna, who led the team with Nijimura and their coach by his side, asking, Captain, Do you think Kachiyama has a shot against them? I heard they've got an unbreakable defense with the center from the Generation of Miracles on their team. So, I guess it'll be tough for Kachiyama to come out on top, right? Ishida added with a thoughtful expression, remembering how Yasenhai dominated their region, leaving opponents unable to score a single point. Nijimura also nodded at this as he spoke. They're known as the Shield of Aegis, not just because of Murasakibara. 3 of their players rank among the tallest in the Winter Cup, making it a real challenge for any team to score against such a lineup. These words garnered surprised expressions from everyone. Even without Atsushi in Yasenhai, I don't think Kachiyama stands much of a chance. Having Atsushi is already a formidable advantage, so they should breeze through this match without much trouble. Suna then opened his mouth and said, which made everyone nod in understanding. Wahaha! Didn't expect you to hold us in such high regard. Thanks, Fukuda Sogo's captain. Suddenly, laughter echoed, prompting every Fukuda Sogo player to turn and spot Yasenhai strolling down the corridor. All eyes were on the leader of Yasen, the source of the laughter. He has a robust figure with rough facial features, including a square head, a prominent jawbone, heavy sideburns, high cheekbones, a large nose, and thick eyebrows and lips. His black hair was short and spiky. Suna observed him and smiled, saying, well, what a surprise. The individual then walked up to Tsuna as he extended a hand for a handshake, which Tsuna professionally accepted. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Kenichi Okamura, the captain of Yasenhai. Okamura introduced himself, breaking into laughter once more. Tsuna reciprocated with a light smile, shaking his head. It's a pleasure on my end, too. I'm Tsunayashi Kazama. Tsuna introduced himself in return. Okamura praised Tsuna for their performance in the first round, saying, you guys played an impressive game just now. Looking forward to meeting again in the next round. The opening match should be like a walk in the park for you. Let's have a showdown in the upcoming round. Tsuna acknowledged Okamura's confidence with a nod and replied with a smile. This time, Yasenhai was up against Kachiyama High. And if they managed to secure this victory, Fukuda Sogo would be their next challenge in the following round. However, another tall guy strolled up to Tsuna and inquired, Hey, Tsunachan, got any snacks on you? You know I don't really eat snacks, don't you? Besides, I gotta stick to my diet, Tsuna replied as he shook his head. Murasakibara, despite already holding a mountain of snacks in his arms, still seemed eager for more. A sudden realization crossed Tsuna's mind, and he added, wait, my staff did restock my kitchen with snacks recently. Really? Let's head to your place then. Murasakibara's eyes gleamed excitedly as he joined Tsuna's side. I'm cool with it, but your buddies might have something to say, Tsuna said as he sighed in response to Murasakibara's request. Come on, Atsushi, we need to finish our first round match before doing anything else, a calm voice intervened. The speaker was a teen with a mole under his right eye. Murasakibara grumbled, why bother? The teen patiently explained the significance of the tournament, gradually pacifying Murasakibara. Tsuna observed the sulking giant from the sidelines, shaking his head at the scene. Hey, Tsuna, it's been a while. The greeting came unexpectedly from the teen, Tatsuya Himuro. Tsuna offered a light smile, replying, yeah, Tatsuya. It has been a while. Your brother's game was impressive. I bet you were surprised, too, hey. Himuro's face briefly twisted in irritation at the mention of Kagami but swiftly reverted to his calm demeanor. Observing the subtle shift, Tsuna shook his head, thinking, childish reactions. Tsuna wasn't privy to the details of personal issues between them, but it was apparent that Himuro held some grudge against Kagami. The Yasenhai players, including Okamura, watched the scene with confusion, unaware of the connection between Fukuda Sogo's captain and Himuro. Their bewilderment intensified when a blonde person unexpectedly embraced Himuro, nearly causing him to lose his balance. Amidst the stares and whispers from the Yasenhai team, Alexandra's excitement echoed, Tatsuya. How have you been? Himuro, still maintaining his composure, responded with a plea for release, Alex, could you please let me go? Himuro could only offer a helpless smile in response. At the same time, the Yasenhai players grew even more astonished by the unexpected arrival of a beautiful blonde foreigner who embraced one of their teammates. Does he know our coach too? Mochizuki voiced his surprise, and the rest of Fukuda Sogo's team shared the same sentiment. While they were already taken aback by Tsuna's familiarity with one of Yasenhai's players, the revelation of a connection with their coach added another layer of astonishment. While Okamura scratched his head in confusion, he turned to Tsuna, expressing his surprise, "I didn't know you were close with two of our players." "Well, Atsushi and I were former classmates during my time studying in Tiako for a year," Tsuna explained as he glanced at Alexandra, whose overly affectionate behavior made Himuro visibly uneasy. He continued, "And Tatsuya used to be our coach's apprentice back in the US, so I got to know him through her." "What?" This time, not just Yasenhai but Fukuda Sogo exclaimed in surprise upon learning that Alexandra was Himuro's mentor. Okamura sighed at the information he had just received, shrugging his shoulders. "Well, we don't have all day since we have a match to catch. So why don't we walk together side by side while talking about stuff? You're going to leave the gymnasium, right?" Tsuna nodded, "Sure." Okamura understood that meeting Fukuda Sogo here, out of all places, meant they were leaving the gymnasium. Although it was disappointing that Fukuda Sogo didn't stay long enough to watch their match, considering Tsuna's high opinion of his team, Okamura felt good knowing that. As they strolled through the corridor, the atmosphere among the Fukuda Sogo players shifted. Conversations bubbled up, creating a lively environment, with Haizaki standing out due to his noticeable silence and a distinct air of annoyance surrounding him. Kensuke Fukui, who was the shortest member of the Yasenhai team, with ash blonde hair that loosely framed his face, observed Haizaki with a puzzled expression. His thoughts echoed his confusion, wondering, this guy is a psycho or what? Agiwara sensed Fukui's perplexity as he took the initiative to offer an explanation. Haizaki is kind of an introvert. Don't mind him, he chuckled, attempting to downplay the Haizaki's peculiarity. Fukui's gaze shifted between Haizaki and Agiwara, skepticism etched on his features. His conclusion lingered on a different interpretation, thinking, introvert? More like antisocial, right? Chapter 160, Chapter 158, Confrontation. As they reached the entrance to the gymnasium, which coincided with the exit gate, Fukuda Sogo and Yasenhai abruptly stopped in their tracks. The air grew heavy with an uncomfortable silence, replacing the previous light-hearted banter. The expressions on the faces of Fukuda Sogo's players shifted dramatically, their usual cheerfulness replaced by a steely seriousness. Such a pressure! Himuro felt the pressure building up as beads of sweat formed as he observed Tsuna's back and the red-haired teenager on the opposite side. Yasenhai, too, felt the weight of the sudden change in atmosphere. The transition from friendly exchanges to this tense encounter left the team on edge. The unspoken tension hung in the air, setting the stage for an uncertain and potentially confrontational moment between the two teams. Tsuna just smiled at the situation, while Okamura seemed to feel uncomfortable under the sudden change of atmosphere. He then suddenly bid Tsuna farewell. "Well, we can't stay for long. So, I guess it's a farewell." As Okamura bid farewell to Tsuna, there was a palpable sense of discomfort in the air. The abrupt change in atmosphere left Okamura and his team feeling uneasy, prompting a swift departure. As much as they wanted to stay and see what would happen, they wouldn't have time to discuss their strategy briefly. As Okamura and his teammates walked away, he couldn't help but glance back at the unexpected encounter. To think we'd meet both Fukuda Sogo and Rakuzan in such a place. A mix of emotions spread across his face: surprise, curiosity, and perhaps a touch of amusement. And they're both definitely strong opponents, ha ha ha. He chuckled, breaking into laughter that seemed out of place given the circumstances, earning quizzical looks from those around him. Okamura's laughter faded as he pondered, glancing at Himuro, but we're no weaker either. Himuro, absent during the inter-high and now a part of the team, had bolstered Okamura's confidence in their tournament prospects. Meanwhile, Tsuna and Akashi stood at the crossroads between the exit gate and Rakuzan's designated changing room. He turned to his left as he saw the exit gate and looked to the right to see Rakuzan's designated changing room. Tsuna then chuckled at the coincidence. The coincidence of meeting Fukuda Sogo and Rakuzan in this unexpected place wasn't lost on Tsuna. The air was thick with a heavy atmosphere, but not a single player from both teams seemed to be nervous. Instead, their eyes lit up with a flash of excitement within their pupils. Clearly anticipating another showdown against each other. "Can't say it was unexpected to see you here, Seijuro." Tsuna spoke while looking at Akashi. Akashi shook his head, though he agreed with Tsuna about that. "Tough, it was not surprising. I suppose I should say congratulations on your first round." "Thank you for that." I know it should be a walk in the park for you, but I guess good luck on your first round. Suna responded back. It was unfortunate that they were placed in a different bracket. But Suna thought it might be for the best. I guess I'll see you in the final then, Fukuda Sogo. As Akashi's eyes flashed with a sharp light which hinted at the competitive spirit burning within him. Oh. Suna was pretty calm and collected as he responded with a nod, accepting the implied challenge. Right, see you at the final. You guys are so confident, hey. A voice suddenly interrupted the moment as both Suna and Akashi turned to see Midorima approaching them with Shudoku following right behind. As Shudoku joined in the commotion, the trio stood in a figurative crossroads, their paths intersecting in a moment that foreshadowed the intense clashes yet to unfold in the tournament. A while ago. Siren won, hey. Midorima gathered his belongings in the changing room, reflecting on Siren's victory. As he packed, he mused about their first round triumph, absolute domination. Time to go, Shin. Takao's voice pulled Midorima's attention. Glancing around, he noticed the team waiting for him. With a nod, he grabbed his scissors, the chosen lucky item for the day. As they exited the changing room, the players stepped into the corridor, only to be met with an unexpected and palpable tension that hung in the air. Takao couldn't help but feel a strange sense of familiarity with this atmosphere, a feeling that made him nervously gulp down his saliva. Before them, a confrontation unfolded. Fukuda Sogo Academy and Rakuzan High stood facing each other, the intensity of their gazes creating an invisible barrier that hinted at the unspoken rivalry between the two teams. Takao couldn't help but whisper to himself, just how the hell could a high school student be that scary? The intensity of the confrontation between Suna and Akashi seemed to send shivers down his spine, leaving him in awe of the sheer pressure emanating from the two players. Meanwhile, Midorima overheard Takao's muttered words. He glanced at Takao's pale expression before turning his attention to Tsuna and Akashi, who were locked in a silent exchange. Midorima approached with determination as he heard their words, determined to respond back with a strong statement. Shudoku will take the trophy this time, he declared with a sharp gaze. Addressing Akashi directly, he continued, that's why we'll beat you in the semi-finals to get to the final. Akashi's gaze held a subtle amusement as he addressed Midorima, sure, feel free to try your best, Shintaro. The tone carried a sense of confidence, a belief in the strength of Rakuzan High. However, Akashi quickly shifted his attention back to Tsuna, acknowledging the impending match. As much as I wanted to have a talk, we have our first round waiting. So, see you later, Tsunayashi. With that, he gracefully departed along with his team as they headed towards Rakuzan High's designated changing room. Tsuna watched Akashi's retreating figure as his eyes glinted with amusement. He then turned to Midorima, who seemed displeased by what he had said earlier. Tsuna couldn't help but chuckle, breaking the tension as he spoke, why? I didn't mean to underestimate Shudoku. Tsuna knew that Midorima took it as if he was expecting Rakuzan instead of Shudoku in the final. However, the truth was. Tsuna said, I don't really care which one of you to get to the final. Tsuna's nonchalance seemed to irk the Shudoku players, who interpreted his words as arrogance. The atmosphere around them tightened as they clenched their fists in response to what they perceived as challenging. Such arrogance! Someone exclaimed, voicing the collective determination of the Shudoku team. You should know better whether I'm being arrogant or not, Shintaro. But anyway, see you guys later. Tsuna was unperturbed as he addressed Midorima, who was silent. Tsuna's words held a quiet confidence, a belief in his team's abilities. He thought, I put extra effort into nurturing them after all. As Tsuna confidently walked away, he motioned for his teammates to join him, leaving Shudoku alone. As Fukuda Sogo finally walked out of the gymnasium, Takao approached Midorima as he spoke, I didn't know he was actually pretty arrogant. Midorima just shook his head in response. He understood why Takao felt that way about Tsuna's straightforwardness, but Midorima knew Tsuna well. Spouting lies and nonsense wasn't Tsuna's style. Midorima clenched his fist, thinking, Tsuna truly didn't expect much from the Winter Cup. His eyes sparked with resolve as he dismissed his distracting thoughts. The impending match against Rakuzan High, which was playing on the same bracket with Shudoku, demanded his full attention. Atsubo, the team captain, shook his head and stated, there's no point in dwelling on them right now. Let's head home and concentrate on our next game tomorrow. Agreeing with their captain, the team nodded in unison. They redirected their focus, leaving the gymnasium behind as they proceeded toward the exit gate. Chapter 161, Chapter 159, Fighting Spirit Unleashed. In the midst of a heavy downpour in Tokyo, Suna, having just wrapped up training with his peers, prepared to head home. Approaching the building, he noticed Sabaz had readied an umbrella for him. Under the shelter of the umbrella, Suna followed Sabaz's lead until they reached the waiting car. As Suna settled into the car seat, he gazed out the window with raindrops streaking across the glass. His expression carried complex emotions. Even though his time was short here at the school, he was starting to feel attached with the school. In the fleeting moments before his return, Suna's gaze lingered on the school grounds. His sigh hinted at the emotions swirling within him. The weeks had passed swiftly, and with only one more week left as a student at the Japanese middle school. "Let's go, Sabaz," Suna declared, prompting a nod from Sabaz as they departed from the school. However, Suna's attention extended to the purple-haired teenager seated beside him in the passenger seat. With a speechless expression on his face, he inquired, "And what are you doing here, Atsushi?" Murasakibara responded in a bored tone as though his presence was expected. "To your place, of course." It was clear that Murasakibara's motive was more snacks. Suna sighed, casting a glance at Murasakibara's rain-soaked uniform. Turning to Sabaz, he instructed, "Sabaz, tell someone to get some big clothes for my classmate later. Make sure it's ready by the time we arrive." "Understood, young master," Sabaz acknowledged. Navigating through the rain-drenched streets of Tokyo, they finally pulled up to Tsuna's residence. They both walked out of the car. Suna then led the way, with Murasakibara trailing behind him. Once inside, Suna seemed on the verge of giving Murasakibara free rein, but before he could say anything, the tall teen had already gravitated toward the kitchen. Suna's hand hung in the air momentarily. Then he let it drop with a resigned sigh. "Do whatever you want. I have to train some more." With those words, Suna walked to his private gym adjacent to the basketball court. Murasakibara, munching on snacks, couldn't contain his curiosity. "You're still going to train?" he asked, following Suna to the gym, somewhat unsure of what to do. "Yeah, why do you ask?" Suna responded, already engaged in his warm-up routine. Murasakibara shook his head, his voice carrying a hint of bewilderment. "Our training at school is already hard enough. Why do you add more?" "I admit, it was pretty intense," Suna acknowledged, reminiscing about the rigorous team training. "Yet, the school sessions weren't sufficient," he explained, "but, training is supposed to be harder. And it should push you through your limits." "Huh? But you're already good. Why would you do an extra hour to be even better?" Murasakibara's inquiry held a touch of childlike curiosity, but Suna kept diligently starting his exercises while patiently addressed each question. "I know some weaklings tend to be hard-working, but that's because they're weak. And you're not weak. Why bother?" Murasakibara set aside his snacks, the question hanging in the air. His aversion to concepts like hard work, determination, and faith was evident. To him, these were attributes associated with the weak strategies to find solace and motivation. He distanced himself from such notions, considering them beneath him. In the midst of his training, Suna halted at Murasakibara's question. Turning to face the tall teen, he shook his head, a subtle expression of reflection on his face. Memories of a past life, where he had persevered through physical limitations with sheer hard work, flashed in his mind. The contrast between his past struggles and the current conversation added depth to the emotions swirling in the gym. However, Suna harbored no anger towards Murasakibara for his perspective. To Suna, Murasakibara resembled a child, actions sometimes irksome but never truly bothersome, considering it typical behavior for someone of Murasakibara's disposition. Approaching Murasakibara, Suna wore a smile, which made the guy look at him with a perplexed expression, uncertain of Suna's intentions. Suna smiled as he spoke, "Let me explain to you in a way you'd understand. Imagine talent as the quality of having the best ingredients available to you. You might have the finest flour, the richest cocoa, and the most exquisite vanilla extract your inherent talent." Suna explained, and Murasakibara nodded in understanding. It was definitely an explanation he would understand. However, without putting in the effort to mix, knead, and bake, just having those premium ingredients won't result in a delicious cake. Murasakibara's eyes widened in surprise, a fleeting emotion that transformed into a frown. "I still don't like it, though. Come, I'll teach you something." Suna shook his head and proceeded to stride onto the basketball court. He cast a glance at Murasakibara, inviting him to follow. Murasakibara responded with a nonchalant shrug as he trailed after Tsuna. Confused by the sudden shift to the court, Tsuna instructed Murasakibara to change into basketball gear and lace up. Murasakibara complied without much questioning, the rustle of fabric and the soft thud of basketball shoes against the floor accompanying his swift readiness. The court was now turned into a battleground, awaited their one-on-one. As the clash unfolded, Tsuna's movements were a dance of agility, his skill evident in each dribble and precision shot. Murasakibara found himself incapable of fending off Tsuna's attack. The court echoed with the rhythm of their footwork, punctuated by the satisfying swish of the net after each successful shot. The match concluded with Murasakibara sprawled on the ground, breathing heavily. Tsuna, who was holding the ball, signaled to Sabas for water. As Sabas handed over water, Tsuna, a sheen of sweat on his forehead, posed a question. "Do you understand what I taught you?" Murasakibara's frown deepened, his head shaking. He completely didn't understand what Tsuna was implying. Tsuna just smiled lightly at Murasakibara's confusion before he asked, "Tell me, why do you keep trying despite losing to me?" "I don't know." Murasakibara's response held a genuine sense of uncertainty. Deep contemplation wasn't his usual style as he navigated the world more through feelings than logic. "Then, why do you keep training with us at school despite not enjoying it?" "Tsunachan, why don't you just tell me straight up? You're getting annoying." Murasakibara grumbled as he displayed his discontent before taking a sip from the water bottle Sabas handed to him. This made Tsuna chuckle as he slowly walked back into the gym. As he glanced at Murasakibara, he left a remark, "You might not understand why, but Atsushi, you've been doing these things unconsciously because you hate losing more than anything else." These words made Murasakibara freeze as he muttered, "Me? I hate losing." Somehow, these words left his chest pumping for some reason as he grabbed his chest confusedly. Leaving Murasakibara alone, Tsuna returned to his training as he still had a few sets left to finish. However, as he was about to be done with his set, he saw Murasakibara suddenly enter the gym and run on the treadmill. "What are you doing?" Tsuna couldn't help but ask, though his lips curled up in a smirk as he saw this. Murasakibara just frowned as he spoke with an annoyed expression, "I will not lose any more, even against you." Hearing these words made Tsuna break into a chuckle. His eyes flashed with a sly glint as he thought, "That's it, Atsushi, keep training. You have to make use of your natural talent efficiently. And by the time you're ready, it's time for you to reach a higher stage." Chapter 162, Chapter 160, To Unleash His True Strength. Ever since that fateful day, Murasakibara found himself begrudgingly adhering to the demanding rigors of his training schedule, a routine he openly disliked. Rebound. The sudden shout snapped him back into the ongoing game. With a swift jump, he grabbed the ball and effortlessly slammed it into the opposing team's basket. "You nailed it, Murasakibara." Okamura gave him a hearty pat on the back as they returned to their positions. "It hurts." Murasakibara clicked his tongue in annoyance at Okamura's overexcitement. Yet, throughout the entire game, a peculiar sensation lingered that Murasakibara couldn't shake off. As they made their way back, he found himself unable to resist clutching his chest, feeling his heart race for some inexplicable reason. This enigmatic feeling eluded Murasakibara's understanding. "What is this? So troublesome?" he mused to himself, perplexed by the unfamiliar emotions coursing through him. The upcoming match against Fukuda Sogo Academy was the main reason for his confusion. The conflicting emotions within him left him in a state of bewilderment. However, a subtle smile played on Murasakibara's lips as he acknowledged the erratic beats of his heart. At that moment, he realized that he didn't particularly dislike these perplexing feelings. Meanwhile, Himuro observed Murasakibara with sweat trickling down his face. "He's never moved past our defense line before. What's gotten into him?" he mused as he stole a glance at the scoreboard, which displayed an overwhelming 87-0. Initially surprising, Murasakibara's sudden move from his usual defensive and lazy stance to contribute to the offense shocked the team. Even coach Masako Araki couldn't help but show her surprise, though she nodded, recognizing the advantage it provided. On the other hand, Kachiyama High found themselves in the midst of a complete rout. The stadium fell silent as spectators absorbed the unfolding spectacle. Observing their opponents, Okamura arched an eyebrow as he thought, "Oh? Have they already given up on the game?" As he observed them, Okamura realized that every player from Kachiyama High wore a collective expression of disbelief with their eyes void of life, as if they had surrendered to the inevitable. It's not exactly shocking, Okamura muttered, his gaze then shifting to Murasakibara. He then chuckled as the towering player appeared to be unusually enthusiastic. Okamura discerned that Murasakibara was eagerly anticipating the upcoming round more than anyone else in Yasenhai. On the opposite end of the gymnasium, where Rakuzenhai's match was going on, Mibuchi gracefully wiped the sweat off his face as he glanced at the unfolding events on Yasenhai's side. Surveying the scoreboard, Mibuchi shook his head, muttering to himself, their opponents are likely to be traumatized after this game. Yet he swiftly redirected his attention to their ongoing match. As Akashi skillfully maneuvered past the opposing defense, causing their entire defensive formation to crumble, Mibuchi couldn't help but smile, anticipating a pass to himself as he recognized it as the optimal strategy to score. To his surprise, Akashi opted for an unexpected move. A sudden crossover took him to the opposite side, and with his agility, he soared for a flawless layup. That's an unusual play for someone like you, SEI. Mibuchi's eyes widened in astonishment. Shaking his head, Mibuchi returned, glancing at Akashi's concentrated expression. A chuckle escaped him elegantly, musing, even someone like SEI can get excited, it seems. Well, that's a revelation. As Mibuchi observed the defeated expressions on their opponents' faces, he couldn't help but notice the same look of shock that had befallen Kachiyama High's players on the other side. Letting out a resigned sigh, he muttered to himself. Looks like we're leaving quite an impression on them too. Mibuchi knew that their opponents would be traumatized as well after this match. Meanwhile, a subdued stillness settled over the entire stadium. The audience was taken aback by the unexpected events in both matches and struggled to make sense of the astonishing outcomes. These two games are one-sided. I feel bad for their opponents. The silence hung heavy, punctuated only by murmurs of confusion and amazement, creating an atmosphere of collective bewilderment. Meanwhile, well, that was unfortunate. In a lavish residence in Tokyo, Tsuna closed his eyes as he expressed his disappointment. Yet, a voice responded with a hint of dejection. Tsuna sighed, turning to Ayamine. Losing is tough, especially when you're playing solo. It's only natural you'd face challenges. Ayamine seemed to be sulking, struggling to come to terms with the defeat against Siren. Tsuna's words made Ayamine frown, and he looked up at Tsuna. You sound like Kuroko. Is Kuroko losing or winning? Tsuna replied, leaving Ayamine momentarily silent. Tsuna shrugged, continuing, instead of getting down about losing, you should be using it as motivation to improve right now and train. I will not allow it, Momoa suddenly interjected. Tsuna raised an eyebrow at Momoa, who sighed. He had entered the zone for too long. Straining his muscles further wouldn't be wise. You're right, Tsuna conceded, recognizing Ayamine's likely exhaustion after an extended period in the zone. Talking like you understand the feeling of losing, Ayamine grumbled. He grabbed the remote, switched on the TV, and settled comfortably on the sofa. Tsuna shook his head, choosing not to respond. He sighed and turned to the other two people present. I thought you were heading home, Shintaro. Midorima clicked his tongue and adjusted his glasses. Before Tsuna could speak to the last person, the guy laughed cheerfully, saying, haha, come on, Kazumaki, let's stick around for a bit. Besides, you'll be playing against Murasakibara tomorrow. You should rest more, Kai's added with a nod. Tsuna shook his head and replied, I'll be fine. Confident in winning? Midorima asked, glancing at Tsuna. Confidence is important, but my main concern is whether Shozo can push Atsushi not to hold his strength back or not, Tsuna said thoughtfully. Nijimura was their center, and he was bound to face Murasakibara. While Tsuna trusted Nijimura's strength, raw power was not his main asset. Given Murasakibara's ability to match Silver in sheer strength in the original canon, Tsuna wondered if Nijimura could bring out the best in Murasakibara. What do you mean by holding back? Kai's asked with a puzzled expression. Even Ayamine turned his attention, and the group focused on Tsuna, who responded with his characteristic smirk, causing Midorima to adjust his glasses instinctively. Tsuna chuckled as he explained, you might not have noticed, but Atsushi has always restrained his strength because, deep down, he's afraid of hurting others. He's well aware of how powerful he is. The revelation left them shocked, their eyes widening in disbelief. Is that even possible? Midorima muttered aloud, his mind grappling with the idea, given Murasakibara's already terrifying raw power. Chapter 163, Chapter 161, Fukuda Sogo vs Yasenhai. The next day arrived at the Yoyogi National Gymnasium, the heart of the Winter Cup, with unmatched excitement. The arena pulsed with energy, the air thick with anticipation as fans eagerly awaited the upcoming clash. Fukuda Sogo's playing against Yasen today. Can't wait to see them in action. As the news of Fukuda Sogo facing off against Yasen circulated through the crowd, a wave of enthusiasm swept over the spectators. Conversations hummed through the spaces between footsteps, creating a lively buzz that echoed throughout the gymnasium. In this sea of eager fans, there was a collective feeling of impatience and excitement, everyone looking forward to witnessing the showdown between these two behemoths. Damn, can't wait to see them. Excitement and buzz filled the entire gymnasium. 3 standout teams were making waves in their regions this year. One of them was the formidable Emperor of Creation, Rakuzenhai. The real thrill, however, came from the anticipation of the clash between the other 2 powerhouse teams in their respective regions in today's tournament's second round, the renowned King of Kings, Fukuda Sogo Academy, and the formidable Shield of Aegis, Yasenhai. Both teams had crushed it in the opening round. Fukuda Sogo, with a resounding win against Fukuoka Daiichi. And Yasenhai shutting down Kachiyama High without letting them score. Seems like everyone's hyped for their match, Kiyoshi remarked, strolling with his Siren teammates toward the gymnasium. They were gearing up for their own second-round face-off against Nakamiya South High today. The anticipation was building. Facing Nakamiya South High, Siren felt a wave of self-assuredness, especially after taking down 2 Academy in the previous match. Curiosity struck Hyuga, prompting him to inquire, "Kuroko, have you ever witnessed a match between Murasakibara and Kazama?" However, Kuroko dashed their hopes by shaking his head. "I haven't seen them play against each other during our time at Tiako," he replied. "But I think even Kazama will have a tough time scoring against Murasakibara," Kuroko said, his face reflecting deep contemplation. "Murasakibara is that formidable?" Kagami inquired, showing genuine interest. Shaking his head in response to Kagami's question, Kiyoshi added, "He's not just good, Murasakibara is likely the best center in Japan right now." Even better than you, Kiyoshi?" Kagane asked, his head tilted in curiosity. Kiyoshi shook his head, appreciating Kagane's confidence. However, the reality was different. "I played against him in middle school, and Murasakibara outclassed me in every way possible," Kiyoshi explained. The revelation surprised everyone. While they knew the generation of miracles were exceptionally talented, hearing Kiyoshi speak so highly of Murasakibara caught them off guard. Murasakibara is definitely one of the main reason for their success this year, but don't sleep on the other players. They've got 3 tall guys, making their defense rock solid, earning them the nickname Shield of Aegis, Aida explained, shedding light on Yasenhai's strengths. Recalling some stats, she added, "They've only lost to Rakuzenhai this year. In their other games, the opponents couldn't even score a single point due to their impenetrable defense." "What? 0 points in every game they won?" Izuki exclaimed, his face expressing disbelief. Hyuga expressed disbelief, muttering, "Can that really happen? It's tough to believe, but it's true." Aida sighed, acknowledging their reactions. Kuroko frowned, his mind on Fukuda Sogo, as he said, "So, this match is essentially a clash between the most powerful offense and the most impenetrable defense." Aida nodded with seriousness. It was precisely why she wanted them to catch this game early. It was a chance to analyze potential opponents and strategize for the future. Meanwhile, in Yasenhai's changing room, all eyes were on Murasakibara, who devoured his snacks with astonishing speed as if he couldn't get enough. "Why's everyone staring?" Murasakibara grumbled, clearly annoyed by the collective gaze fixated on him. Their point guard, Kansui Fukui, shook his head, perplexed by Murasakibara's odd behavior that had been going on since the previous day. Did he just inhale those snacks? Okamura marveled at the mountain of snacks disappearing at an almost supernatural speed on Murasakibara's side. Weilu, Yasenhai's small forward and an exchange student from China, shook his head, commenting, "It's not about how fast he eats, but why he needs to eat so much in the first place. Atsushi must have a reason to do so, right?" Himuro chuckled softly. Murasakibara, still munching away, nodded in agreement, "Yet, we're up against Tsunachin, so I need the extra snacks." "So, you mean, the more snacks you eat, the more stamina you have?" Fukui couldn't help but roll his eyes in disbelief at Murasakibara's seemingly absurd claim about snacks and stamina. The notion sounded utterly ridiculous to him. However, Okamura burst into hearty laughter as he found Murasakibara's statement amusing. The rest of the team shook their heads, sporting smiles at the light-hearted banter. Amid Okamura's laughter, he managed to convey a more serious undertone as he addressed the team. Murasakibara's got a point. We're facing a formidable opponent this time, so we better fuel up. Ha 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 ha. His laughter echoed in the room, but beneath the humor, a glint of seriousness shone in his eyes. All right, enough of the jokes. The stern voice of their coach brought an instant hush to the room, and all eyes turned toward her. She held a Japanese wooden stick, a clear sign that she meant business. Even Murasakibara, usually unfazed, paused his snacking. Their coach, Araki, cast a glance at Murasakibara, who then continued munching without a care. She sighed as she decided to let him be, thinking, if Murasakibara is this focused, our upcoming opponent must be a serious challenge. With everyone's attention on her, Araki nodded in satisfaction and began, as you all know, our next opponents were the Inter-High champions. They have a powerful offensive game, and from what I observed in their first round match, it's clear why they're considered the best in offense. Nods of agreement swept through the room. The team was familiar with the reputation of their upcoming rivals. However, our strength lies in defense. So, let's remind them why we're known as the Shield of Aegis this time around. Araki's declaration sparked excitement, and the team erupted in cheers, their spirits soaring as they eagerly anticipated the match against Fukuda Sogo. Murasakibara's eyes briefly lit up, a hint of anticipation flickering before he resumed munching on his snack. Chapter 164, Chapter 162, Heading to the Court. In the hushed ambience of the Fukuda Sogo changing room, there was an intense air enveloping the players. This made Alexandra shake her head lightly as she was quite speechless. Her eyes moved attentively over each member of the team. They looked serious, but I could feel their eagerness to play, she thought, sensing the team's excitement for today's match. Yet, it wasn't just about winning, it seemed like they wanted to devour Yasenhai completely. She let out another sigh at their changes. Sighing, she glanced at Tsuna, the one responsible for their current behavior. Her role was to oversee their training sessions, develop a proper training plan, and report their progress to Tsuna. At the same time, Tsuna handled the strategic aspects, and Nijimura managed the administrative side of the team. She had a general idea of what had transpired during their training camp with Jabberwock. Still, she didn't understand the whole picture as the Jabberwock management staff had taken care of the responsibilities she typically handled. With the freedom to play around in her neighborhood and even train Kagami during her downtime, Alexandra was essentially on vacation. Turning her attention to Tsuna, she pondered how he would prepare the team for the match against Yasenhai today. Noticing Alexandra's gaze, Tsuna casually shrugged. Well, securing the jump ball at the beginning of the match might be a challenge, especially with Atsushi on the other side. This time, Nijimura was tasked with the jump ball, standing at only 195 cm compared to Murasakibara's towering 208 cm. Nijimura acknowledged the challenge of winning the jump ball, nodding in understanding. I heard he's been constantly touching the ball even before it reaches its peak height. He might make the same mistake this game, Ishida added with a thoughtful look. Tsuna dismissed any expectations, shaking his head. I don't like relying on things beyond our control. Let's focus on being prepared. It's better to be safe than sorry. The team nodded collectively, agreeing on Tsuna's words. Tsuna shifted his attention to Mochizuki, asking, Kazuhiro, you've crossed paths with the guy you're marking today, right? Mochizuki nodded, remembering the previous encounter with one of Alexandra's disciples, Tatsuya Himuro. Tatsuya is not your average player, so don't underestimate him, Tsuna cautioned. Surprised by the unusual warning from Tsuna, Mochizuki widened his eyes. Recalling that Himuro was trained by Alexandra, a former WNBA player, Mochizuki nodded as he took the advice seriously. Though Himuro hadn't reached the level of the Generation of Miracles, he definitely would pose a challenge for Mochizuki. And Shuzo, I need you to go all out with him right from the start, Tsuna instructed, which surprised them. Nijimura arched an eyebrow, taken aback by the unexpected instruction from Tsuna. They would usually play it with a normal pace in the beginning, but despite the surprise, he nodded reassuringly and replied, got it. The team exchanged glances, realizing that Nijimura would face Murasakibara, explaining Tsuna's insistence on him giving his best from the outset. After all, Murasakibara was the formidable center of the generation of miracles. Fukuda Sogo had adopted a strict man-to-man defense strategy under Tsuna's leadership. Each player had a specific opponent to mark, emphasizing individual strengths which explained their rigorous training to improve their strengths as an individual player. Alexandra, however, knew there was more to it. Tsuna was aiming for something. If he had been using his opponents to forcefully improve his team, this time he does the opposite, she mused silently while keeping an ear on Tsuna's instructions. Switching to their offensive strategy, Tsuna's face reflected deep thought. After scrutinizing his team, he broke into a confident smile. For attacking, let's go with our version of give and go. On the other side, Yasenhai had finished their strategy talk and left the changing room, heading towards the court. Amid the excited crowd, two figures, one with dark blue hair and the other with long pink hair, walked side by side. As expected, this place is crowded, hey. His lazy voice resonated in the lively surroundings as he casually made his way towards the edge of the seating area. It has always been this crowded, though. The pink-haired teenager retorted immediately. A sigh escaped Ayamine's lips, not particularly eager to engage in an argument at the moment. Oh, hello there, Ayamine. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the ambient noise. The unexpected greeting prompted Ayamine to sharply turn his head. To his surprise, he found Kuroko sitting there, with the entire Siren team seated right beside where he was standing. The revelation hung in the air, momentarily freezing the scene with a palpable silence. Caught in the awkwardness of the moment, Ayamine scratched his head, unsure of how to proceed. Without uttering a word, he began to walk away, only to be firmly pulled back by Momoa. With a mischievous smile on her face, Momoa orchestrated Ayamine's return, and he found himself reluctantly seated right beside the Siren team. Kagami chuckled, breaking the tension with a casual greeting, "Yo, Ayamine, didn't expect to see you here." However, Ayamine remained silent, offering no reply as he nonchalantly yawned, seemingly indifferent to Kagami's presence. A visible vein bulged out on Kagami's temple as he turned to the others and inquired, "Did he just ignore me?" The rest of the group could only manage sheepish laughter in response while Momoa shot Kagami an apologetic look. In the midst of the light-hearted banter, Momoa noticed Aida, the Siren team's coach, wearing a peculiar expression as she gazed at her chest. Momoa mirrored the action before tilting her head in confusion. She questioned, "Why are you making such a face, Siren's coach?" "Don't mind me, I just realized how unfair the world was." Aida sighed with a dissatisfied expression etched onto her face. Haiga and Kyoji, who had witnessed the unfolding scene, struggled to maintain their composure. Their lips twitched slightly as they were holding back laughter. Aida, seemingly equipped with a keen sense, sharply turned toward them, wearing an angry expression that made the duo nervously look away. "The sky is beautiful, hey." Haiga remarked. "I agree. It's beautiful." Kyoji responded, the two of them delivering their lines with a robotic tone, trying to redirect Aida's focus. Meanwhile, Kagane, observing the peculiar exchange, looked at them with confusion and remarked, "But, the gymnasium is indoor, though." A moment of tension hung in the air. Kagane's innocent comment silenced both players as they sensed Aida's sharp gaze intensifying. Momoa gently chuckled as she observed the unfolding scene with a keen interest. "You guys seemed very close with each other," she remarked amusedly. Chapter 165, Chapter 163, Warming Up. "Oh, you will be playing against Nakamiya South High, right? How's your preparation going?" Switching the topics, Momoa inquired about the upcoming match out of curiosity. Aida sighed before she flashed a confident smile, "Well, we've observed their play for some time. We should be fine." The members of Siren nodded in agreement as they wore smiles that reflected their assurance in the preparation. Yet, Momoa, with her keen eyes, sensed a subtle difference in their confidence. Her mind grappled with the thought, "It's good to be confident, but..." Her contemplation lingered as an uneasy feeling crept in. Examining the expressions of Siren players, Momoa pondered, why are they letting their guard down like this? Ayamine also seemed to notice this as he briefly glanced at them before refocusing on the court and scoffing. Kagami frowned as he noticed Ayamine's expression. He opened his mouth to question, but before he could, the crowd erupted into cheers as Fukuda Sogo and Yasenhai stepped onto the court. "Wow! Look, they're coming out! Come on! I'm so eager to see them play!" The stadium hummed with excitement as both teams stepped onto the court. Caught up in the fervor, Kagami redirected his focus to the unfolding spectacle on the court. Back on the court, both teams lined up, engaging in the customary pre-game formalities. As the ritual concluded, the players dispersed to commence their individual warm-up routines. Amidst the buzz of activity, Suna took a moment to approach Murasakibara, who stood tall, his demeanor suggesting a disinterest that barely masked the excitement bubbling within his pupils. Suna couldn't help but notice the subtle glimmer in Murasakibara's eyes, prompting a small smile. "Don't disappoint me later, Atsushi." Suna's words were deliberate and carried a note of expectation. Murasakibara responded with a tone that mirrored annoyance, akin to that of a displeased child, "As if I would lose." Suna chuckled in response, his gaze then shifting to Nijimura. With a pointed gesture, he continued, "Shozo would be marking you, and he is pretty strong. You don't need to hold back, Atsushi." "Hold back? What do you mean?" Murasakibara tilted his head in confusion, his towering figure giving off an air of innocence. Suna shook his head, almost expecting Murasakibara's lack of awareness. It was typical of him not to delve into deeper thoughts, and Suna recognized this trait well. "You'll know soon enough," Suna replied mysteriously. Murasakibara frowned, his annoyance evident as he clicked his tongue. "You've never changed," he grumbled. The cryptic nature of Suna's words was something Murasakibara had grown accustomed to. "Ha ha ha, as expected, you guys seemed pretty close." Okamura approached the duo with hearty laughter, breaking the momentary seriousness as he remarked with his laughter resonating in the air. Suna simply shrugged, a light-hearted smile playing on his lips. "Well, I've said what I wanted to say," Suna addressed Murasakibara, his gaze sincere. He then turned to Okamura, extending his hand for a handshake, which Okamura firmly accepted. "Let's have a good game." "Ha ha ha, sure. Let's have fun." Okamura reciprocated with a jovial spirit. With that, Suna rejoined his team, leaving Okamura to return to Yasenhai alongside Murasakibara, the friendly atmosphere lingering as both teams prepared for the upcoming clash. As the two teams geared up for the imminent showdown, Nijimura approached Suna with a questioning look etched on his face. "What were you two talking about?" Nijimura inquired, curiosity evident in his tone. Suna responded with a light chuckle, injecting an air of mystery into the conversation. "I told him not to hold back." Nijimura couldn't hide his surprise at Suna's directness. "You're directly telling him that?" Suna's nonchalant shrug betrayed a hint of amusement. His eyes flickered towards Murasakibara on the opposing side as he continued, "Even if I said it directly, he was still confused." "Really?" Nijimura raised an eyebrow in disbelief. Glancing at Murasakibara, he shook his head. Reflecting on Murasakibara's exceptional talent, he thought amusedly, "I suppose God decided to balance the scales by granting him talent alone, without throwing in the brain power. All right, team. Let's dive into our usual warm-up sets." "Noted, Captain." Suna's voice resonated through the team, eliciting a resounding shout in response. True to their routine, Fukuda Sogo did their usual warm-up, a series of basics such as shooting, passing, and dribbling. However, each movement was executed with meticulous precision and intense focus, showcasing their commitment to the fundamentals. Yasenhai, on the other hand, engaged in their own warm-up regimen. Okamura wore a serious expression as he watched Fukuda Sogo's warm-up unfold. "They're only doing the basics, but their focus is terrifying," he remarked, a bead of sweat forming on his brow. Lu was standing beside him as the guy nodded in agreement. Although Fukuda Sogo appeared to be practicing the basics, the intensity emanating from each player during the execution of movements and shots sent shivers down the spines of their opponents. Araki, the coach of Yasenhai, nodded approvingly at Fukuda Sogo's warm-up routine. The focused and intense execution of fundamental basketball skills, including shooting, passing, and dribbling, impressed her. "Executing the basics with such precision and concentration is the essence of a proper warm-up," she remarked. Although seemingly simple, the intense focus during these foundational drills served multiple purposes. It not only honed the players' technical skills but also sharpened their mental acuity and coordination. The repetitive nature of these exercises ensured that each player's movements became sharp, fostering muscle memory crucial for a basketball game's fast-paced and dynamic nature. Additionally, the intense focus required during the warm-up created a mental zone, preparing the players for the challenges ahead and instilling a sense of unity within the team. Murasakibara, in the midst of his warm-up routine, grumbled as he glanced across the court at Tsuna. "I'm not planning on losing this match. You seem particularly fired up today, Atsushi. It's nice to see this side of you," Himuro remarked with a gentle smile. "Fired up? Me?" Murasakibara scowled at the notion. Considering himself to be more on the lazy side, the idea of being excited wasn't something he was accustomed to, and he didn't appreciate the suggestion. He let out a gruff noise of annoyance. Himuro simply shook his head, smiling at Murasakibara's reaction. Turning his attention to the other side, where Fukuda Sogo was engaged in warm ups, Himuro's amiable expression shifted into one of seriousness. He acknowledged their strength as he had witnessed their triumph in the Inter-High, even if he wasn't present in person. The recording of their final match against Rakuzanhai had left an impression on him. Recalling the opening ceremony yesterday, Himuro's thoughts deepened. Feeling it in person, especially on the court, gives me goosebumps. His gaze sharpened as he observed each player on the court. Himuro sensed the tangible improvement in Fukuda Sogo since the Inter-High. Despite acknowledging their strength, his eyes held an unwavering confidence as he smiled. This match will be exciting. Chapter 166, Chapter 164, Tip-Off. The game is about to start. You seem to be excited, Ryo. You seem to be talking about yourself, Kotaro. Ha 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 ha, I'm full. Rakuzanhai entered the arena, drawing attention as they settled into their seats. Whispers rippled through the surrounding crowd at the sight of the formidable team. With a gentle shake of his head, Mibuchi observed the excited Kotaro. On the other side, Nabaya was contemplating whether to indulge in more food as he mumbled. Meanwhile, Mayuzumi displayed his usual nonchalance and cast a fleeting glance at his teammates before fixing his gaze on Akashi, who remained calmly focused on the unfolding game. He seems to be curious about the match, Mayuzumi mused, observing the subtle intensity that flickered within Akashi's otherwise composed eyes. Returning to the court, Mayuzumi noted the teams had assumed their positions, the referee poised in the center. Murasakibara's gaze fixed on Nijimura, and with Tsuna's earlier words echoing in his mind, he couldn't help but express his irritation with a click of his tongue. Nijimura, perplexed by Murasakibara's unusual behavior, tilted his head in confusion. As the referee prepared to toss the ball, Nijimura's eyes widened in surprise. Murasakibara, typically indifferent, emitted an unexpected and palpable focus that caught both teams off guard. Nijimura was sweating slightly, bewildered by the contrast between what Tsuna said about Murasakibara being confused and the unexpected focus from the towering player. Glancing at Tsuna, who wore his iconic smirk on his face, made Nijimura twitch his lips slightly. Meanwhile, even the Yasenhai members were taken aback, their eyes fixed on Murasakibara in disbelief. "I've never seen him so focused," Okamura admitted, wiping sweat from his weathered face. Himuro was also surprised by Murasakibara's unusual demeanor. His gaze shifted between the towering player and Tsuna, who was weirdly smirking. "Whatever he's planning, it's good to have Atsushi excited like this," Himuro remarked. As the referee launched the ball into the air, signifying the commencement of the game, both Nijimura and Murasakibara exerted power through their legs, propelling themselves upward in a synchronized display of athleticism. The clash for the ball unfolded in a breathtaking aerial duel, capturing the crowd's attention and eliciting gasps of anticipation. With a determined frown etched across his face, Nijimura leapt into the air. However, Murasakibara's impressive height and long reach allowed him to secure the ball first. In a swift motion, he redirected it toward Himuro. "Move forward." Okamura's commanding voice resonated through the court, punctuating the tense atmosphere. Himuro skillfully controlled the ball, initiating the first offensive maneuver of the match. Surprisingly, Murasakibara also advanced, taking part in the offensive onslaught. The unexpected turn of events prompted the Yasenhai coach to stand up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "He went forward this time!" she exclaimed, unable to conceal her surprise at Murasakibara's uncharacteristic aggression. From the beginning of Murasakibara's association with Yasenhai, the towering player had adhered strictly to his defensive territory, never venturing beyond its bounds because he was too lazy. "That lazy ass actually went forward with us." Fukui found himself dumbfounded, his gaze fixed on Murasakibara's figure. "That was surprising," Okamura marveled silently, his expression one of awe as he observed Murasakibara's newfound aggression. His eyes flickered toward Tsuna, a more serious expression etched on Okamura's face. He might not be a Generation of Miracles member, but if he could make Murasakibara this serious, he must be on the same level, he concluded. Himuro suddenly paused on the court, visibly taken aback by Murasakibara's unexpected behavior. However, he quickly regained his composure and resumed his dribble, continuing to advance. This moment of surprise gave Mochizuki enough time to position himself adeptly and swiftly cut off Himuro's path. He took a deep breath, vividly recalling Tsuna's cautionary words about the formidable shooting guard from Yasenhai. As Himuro continued his dribble, he sensed an unexpected intensity emanating from Mochizuki's defense. Despite this, a confident smirk formed on Himuro's lips. "Focus alone won't suffice to halt me," he declared, undeterred by the defensive pressure. Himuro showcased his exceptional ball-handling skills on the basketball court, dribbling the ball with a fluid grace. The smooth rhythm of the ball against the floor echoed through the gymnasium as he made a beautiful stride to the right, mesmerizing Mochizuki before he snapped back, and he swiftly reacted, mirroring Himuro's movement to cut off his path. Yet, to Mochizuki's surprise, Himuro's figure seemed to freeze in his former position, creating a split-second illusion of stillness, which made him widen his eyes in disbelief. What? Seizing the opportunity, Himuro swiftly pivoted, striding to the left with a calculated precision that left Mochizuki momentarily off balance. The gymnasium held its breath as Himuro effortlessly broke past Mochizuki's defense, the finesse in his footwork and the deceptive dribbling leaving an indelible impression on the court. As Himuro approached the ideal shooting range, he found himself surprised by Mochizuki's unexpected speed. "He's fast." Caught off guard, Himuro momentarily hesitated before swiftly passing the ball to Murasakibara, whom Nijimura closely marked. Observing this, Mochizuki clicked his tongue in frustration. "This guy is quick to react. Now, I won't be able to catch him off guard again." He realized that the next time to stop Himuro would be even more tricky. Under the basket, Murasakibara, with his towering height, aggressively grabbed the ball, fully expecting to overpower any opponent in his path. However, he was taken aback as he realized Nijimura, despite his shorter stature, stood firm under the pressure. Undeterred, Murasakibara's primary focus remained on scoring. He soared into the air with a powerful jump, rotating his massive frame toward the basket, ready to execute a forceful slam. The gymnasium seemed to shake with the sheer energy of Murasakibara's move. Smiles spread across Yasenhai players' faces at Murasakibara's impressive leap. They were confident that no one could stop him from scoring points. However, their expressions of confidence quickly turned to shock. Yet, in a split second, Murasakibara felt an unexpected chill. Nijimura's hand intercepted the ball with incredible precision, swatting it with finesse. The ball, diverted by Nijimura's clever block, bounced off the backboard, narrowly missing the basket. Murasakibara's eyes widened in disbelief, a rare expression on the towering player's face as he looked at Nijimura in shock. Once filled with the anticipation of a powerful dunk, the gymnasium fell into a momentary hush. Chapter 167, Chapter 165, Shattered Records. Don't be surprised. I just know how to handle a big guy like you. Nijimura's voice cut through the silence, his words laced with confidence. He'd observed enough clashes between Tsuna and Silver to pick up a few tricks. Murasakibara was taken aback by Nijimura's words, and he then frowned in displeasure. Meanwhile, Okamura widened his eyes in shock. However, as he recalled what Nijimura had done, he understood why he could block Murasakibara's dunk. As he thought, he's not just clever. He's also not someone to be taken lightly. However, what made him slightly feel on edge was the intense pressure from Nijimura. The audience collectively gasped in disbelief at the spectacle of Nijimura's successful block, a momentary suspension of breath as the unexpected turn of events unfolded. Sirenhai's players mirrored the shock reflected in the stands. Kagane voiced the collective sentiment and exclaimed, "That's ridiculous. He was clever." Momo mused, her eyes fixed on Nijimura, who had remarkably used a skillful block that thwarted Murasakibara's attempt to score for Yasenhai. "Clever, hey? What's that supposed to mean?" Kagami questioned with his brow furrowing in confusion. Ayamine shook his head with a disdainful smirk. "What a blockhead," Ayamine muttered dismissively, casting a sidelong glance at Kagami. "What did you just call me?" Kagami retorted, his irritation bubbling to the surface. His eyes rolled in annoyance at Ayamine's unabashed comment. Ayamine merely scoffed at Kagami's reaction, an amused glint in his eyes as if reveling in the stirred emotions of his fiery counterpart. Meanwhile, Momoi observed the banter between the two with a shake of her head, her eyes reflecting a mix of exasperation and fondness. Nijimura was keenly aware of his disadvantage in raw power, especially pitted against someone of Murasakibara's caliber, she explained, calming down the tension between them. And because of this, he relied more on his jumping power, executing a skillful block with a slight angle that disrupted Murasakibara's powerful dunk attempt. She then continued that, making everyone in Siren nod in realization. Ignoring Momoi's explanation, Ayamine's attention was fixated entirely on Nijimura, who emanated a familiar pressure. His aura seems to be sharper than the last time. A subtle frown edged across Ayamine's face as he recalled the less than pleasant memories of being pressured by Nijimura during their encounter in the Inter-High. The gymnasium echoed with exuberant cheers and gasps of amazement. Whoa Aya! That's crazy! Murasakibara was stopped. The crowd, electrified by the unexpected turn of events, couldn't contain their excitement. The uproarious cheers surged through the air, creating an electric atmosphere as spectators absorbed the intensity of the play unfolding right from the beginning. Yet, the game was far from over. Fu*K. Everyone get back on your feet. Okamura's urgent shout reverberated through the gym as he realized that the astonishing play momentarily paralyzed his team. Seizing the moment, Aguilera displayed remarkable agility and reaction speed. In a fluid and decisive motion, he anticipated the ball's trajectory as it rebounded off the backboard. With precision, Aguilera snatched the ball mid-air and executed a swift pass, directing the ball seamlessly into Tsuna's waiting hands without hesitation. Tsuna swiftly grabbed the ball as he dashed forward, disrupting the momentum and shifting it toward Fukuda Sogo High. However, Yasen High was no pushover, as Fukui reacted immediately as he moved to intercept Tsuna's advance. Recognizing the urgency, Yasen High hastily scrambled to recover and pursue the captain of Fukuda Sogo Academy. In the action, Liu's gaze instinctively fell upon Fukui, who had reacted faster than any of them. A silent expression of relief crossed Liu's face, accompanied by an inner sentiment, thank God he reacted immediately. Typically, Fukui would accompany such defensive maneuvers with spirited shouts like, I won't let you get past me. Or not on my watch. But having reviewed the recordings of Fukuda Sogo's previous matches, he hesitated. The formidable skills the Fukuda Sogo captain displayed cast doubt on Fukui's usual confidence. Then, I don't need to stop you. Fukui's determined eyes gleamed with a different kind of resolve. His words held a conviction that caught Tsuna's attention. Naturally, you wouldn't. A knowing smile formed on Tsuna's face as he understood Fukui's strategy. It became evident that Fukui wasn't attempting a direct block but instead buying precious time. As the scene unfolded, the realization of what Fukui was doing rippled through the team as they witnessed a towering figure swiftly go past them. A collective exhale echoed through the team, marked by a palpable sense of relief. We're the shield of Aegis. Be it the King of Kings or whatever, taking us down won't be easy. Okamura's fervent proclamation echoed across the court, his voice resonating with the unwavering confidence that radiated from his determined gaze. Tsuna effortlessly sidestepped Fukui's defense, seizing the opportunity and leaving him behind. In a seamless motion, Tsuna leaped gracefully into the air, the ball cradled in his hand as he aimed for a dunk. As Tsuna anticipated, a looming shadow appeared beside him as a towering figure with long arms powerfully stroking the ball in his hand. Murasakibara had arrived. But Tsuna didn't falter in the slightest as he adjusted his intended move. Instead of executing the dunk as initially planned, he subtly altered the ball's trajectory, nudging it toward the backboard. What? Murasakibara's eyes widened in surprise at Tsuna's unexpected maneuver, his confusion evident. However, his confusion was answered as another figure swiftly appeared behind him, Nijimura. Seizing the opportunity, Nijimura wasted no time. The ball rebounding off the backboard was immediately slammed down to the basket by him. The gymnasium erupted in awe and excitement. As expected of Fukuda Sogo. They've shattered the Shield of Aegis record. Holy! Finally, Yasen High gets dunked on. Yet, it's the first time they're facing an opponent that can score even with their defense. Spectators and players alike marveled at the collaborative combo that outwitted and successfully executed a scoring play against the formidable defense of the Yasen High. As they landed on the court, Murasakibara eyed Nijimura with an uncharacteristic seriousness, a frown marring his usually disinterested expression. You're pretty annoying, he grumbled, glancing at the Fukuda Sogo player who had just scored. Even though annoyance flashed in his eyes, Murasakibara couldn't deny that he was taking Nijimura more seriously now. It was the first time he acknowledged that Najimura's skills went beyond mere strength as he used annoying techniques that were troublesome to him. Chapter 168, Chapter 166, title at the end of the chapter. Nijimura kept his mouth shut as he shook his head. He glanced at Tsuna with a thoughtful expression as he noticed that Tsuna had started to walk back without even looking at him finishing the move. Though flattered by how confident Tsuna was in his finishing move, Nijimura sighed as he returned to his position right after Tsuna. He couldn't help but look at Murasakibara, who now seemed to be taking him seriously. Tsuna should be able to finish it on his own with his ability, but it seems like he realized Murasakibara was taking me lightly. Hey! Nijimura thought as he let out a wry smile at Tsuna. However, despite that, Najimura's eyes gleamed with even more intense determination as he relaxed his form, sending a palpable challenge through the gymnasium. The sudden shift in his atmosphere caught everyone by surprise, and all eyes turned in his direction. Alright then, I'll make sure Murasakibara knows not to underestimate me, too, he declared as he locked his gaze on Murasakibara, who responded with a frown. Kagami, who was sitting in the audience with Siren, feel a tingling sensation beneath his skin as he couldn't help but take a look at Nijimura with a wary eyes. I could even feel it up here. Such an intense aura. He couldn't help but feel a familiarity with Amine's beast instinct. But somehow, it was different. What Najimura's exuding wasn't that of a beast, it felt a lot sharper and more refined. Just what is that? Amine, don't you feel it? Kagami spoke as he turned to Amine. Amine just frowned as he nodded. He glanced at Nijimura before turning to Tsuna as he spoke, he's like a sword. A loyal sword serving his king. On the other part of the audience. A loyal sword that serves his king, you said? Takao exclaimed in disbelief. Shudoku seemed to have a similar discussion as they could also feel Najimura's pressure from their seat. However, Midorima just calmly adjusted his glasses as he nodded at Takao's exclamation. The others in Shudoku was taken aback before they shifted their focus back at Nijimura. That's right, that is his version of beast instinct. He continued as he looked at Nijimura with a serious expression. Midorima then turned to Takao, who broke into sweat as he added, unlike wild beasts, he's refined and skilled. Each move is calculated, and each strike is anticipated. He's not a wild beast, he's the epitome of chivalry, a guardian bound by duty, showing a heightened awareness and a mix of instinct and learned skill. Nijimura was akin to a finely crafted blade guided by the unwavering honor of knighthood. That is kink perception. Midorima revealed Najimura's state, which made everyone in Shudoku to be looking at Nijimura with a complex emotion. Meanwhile, back in the court, Yasenhai players who felt it directly couldn't help but feel their back drenched in sweat at the intensity. What the hell is wrong with this guy? Isn't this just the beginning of the game? Why is he so aggressive already? Fukui muttered under his breath, his frustration evident as he dribbled the ball down the court. Fukui! Okamura's urgent shout sliced through the air, causing Fukui to widen his eyes in disbelief. In an instant, Tsuna's agile figure swooped in, stealing the ball from Fukui's possession. The sudden turn of events prompted a frustrated exclamation from Fukui, Fu*K. I was careless. Meanwhile, Najimura's presence on the court seemed almost like a blur, weaving through the opposition with a fluid grace. Tsuna glanced in Najimura's direction, swiftly passed the ball to him. However, Murasakibara, who had taken Nijimura as a threat seriously, exhibited a monstrous reaction speed as he shadowed Najimura's every move from behind. Approaching the basket, Nijimura executed a powerful leap, aiming to slam the ball into Yasenhai's basket. However, Murasakibara was determined not to let a repeat of the previous play happen and responded with a slightly annoyed tone, I'm not letting you do it again this time. With that, he leaped up, ready to block Najimura's attempt. Recognizing the looming obstacle, Najimura's eyes flashed. Catching a glimpse of a figure on the left, he swiftly adjusted his body, redirecting the ball right into the hands of Tsuna, who had strategically positioned himself to shoot. However, Murasakibara, familiar with this pattern, reacted with agility. He closed the distance swiftly, making a quick move to jump and block Tsuna's attempt. Not a chance, Tsunachan. Confronted by Murasakibara's towering presence, Tsuna's expression remained nonchalant. In a split second, the ball in his hand transformed into a blur, weaving through the court with lightning speed. It darted between Murasakibara's feet, creating a seamless path to the opposite side of the court, where Mochizuki stood just before the three-pointer line. The sudden and elusive pass left everyone, including Lu, who was tasked with keeping the shooting guard from Fukuda Sogo in check. Liu's expression reflected his bewilderment as he pondered, how did the ball disappear? The unexpected turn of events had a surreal quality, leaving the players momentarily stunned. As reality set in, Mochizuki had already seized the opportunity. Swiftly releasing the ball, he launched a precise shot that sailed through the basket with a swish, earning Fukuda Sogo 3 crucial points. Observing the incredible play unfold, Kuroko couldn't contain his astonishment as he stood up in disbelief. His eyes remained fixed on Tsuna, who, with unparalleled precision, executed a pass that transcended even his own Ignite Pass Kaya move that not everyone in Siren could successfully receive. On the bench, Alexandra wore a knowing smile as she observed the proceedings. Her thoughts mirrored the unfolding events. Seems like they can receive Tsuna's pass this time. It was a testament to the team's growth and improved coordination. Tsuna, who had always relied on flashy moves to veil the force within his passes, enabling his teammates to catch them more comfortably. With the team's heightened skills and synchronization, Tsuna had surpassed the need for such compensatory measures. What the hell just happened? Himuro's eyes widened in disbelief, mirroring the sentiments of the entire Yasenhai team. The rapid and seemingly inexplicable movement of the ball had left them in a state of confusion, struggling to comprehend how it traversed such a distance with astonishing speed. Ishida couldn't help but chuckle at the disbelieving expressions on Yasenhai's players. As he observed their reactions, a sense of nostalgia washed over him. Those were pretty much our expressions back then when we first tasted that blonde guy's ridiculous pass, he reflected, the memory of their training days with the Jabberwock flashing through his mind. Title: Night Perception. Chapter 169, Chapter 167, Shrouded Mystery. Quickly responding to the unexpected turn of events, Araki immediately called for a timeout, bringing both teams back to their respective benches. Still caught in a collective state of awe, the gymnasium buzzed with whispers and murmurs as the audience tried to process the astonishing play they had just witnessed. Is it just me, or does that pass seem faster than Kuroko's Ignite Pass Kai? Hyaga's muttering was audible to those around him. Izuki seemed to catch Kuroko's shocked gaze and directed the question to the phantom sixth man, what do you think, Kuroko? Kuroko wore a complex expression and nodded reluctantly. Yes, as much as I didn't want to admit it. It was indeed the case. His eyes remained fixed on Tsuna. Kagami looked on with a surprised expression. Amine, do you know about this? He inquired, turning to seek Amine's insight. To Kagami's surprise, Amine displayed a similarly shocked expression, signaling that Tsuna's unexpected move had caught the ace of 2 Academy off guard. Kagami also noticed the frustration etched on Amine's face, evident in the tightly gripped fist. Amine's gaze shifted to Tsuna, his thoughts racing. So, you're holding yourself back in our match before, Tsuna. The realization hit him hard. Amine had previously assumed that his losses were solely due to being out of peak condition. However, this revelation unveiled a new layer to Tsuna's capabilities, leaving Amine to grapple with the realization of his own naivety in understanding the extent of Tsuna's strength. That's not what's important. His teammates being able to receive such a pass clearly indicates their strong physical capability, Aida interjected with a long sigh. Siren players found themselves once again frozen in realization as beads of sweat formed on their brows. Hyga adjusted his glasses and sensed a shiver running down his spine. I guess it was expected, considering these guys are the champions of the Inter-High. On the sidelines, Momoa continued to observe Tsuna with complex emotions. While she felt genuine relief that Tsuna's strength remained unwavering, a subtle conflict lingered. The revelation that Tsuna had intentionally played with a handicap on their match before during the Inter-High, yet still emerged victorious, made her sigh. As expected, you're always been a mystery, Tsuna, Momoa murmured with a shake of her head as a smile graced her beautiful face. Meanwhile, Shutoku remained silent, collectively trying to process the unreal spectacle they had just witnessed. Despite being just a pass, its otherworldly speed and precision left them in awe. Midorima gripped his fist in frustration, and couldn't help but contemplate, just what more are you hiding, Tsuna? The awe-inspiring pass had a similar effect on Rakuzenhai. That pass is insane, Kotaro muttered in disbelief. Mibuchi nodded in agreement, his gaze shifting towards Fukuda Sogo with a frown. However, his attention was diverted as he noticed something extraordinary. Turning toward Akashi, who typically exuded an air of nonchalance, Mibuchi was taken aback. A subtle surprise lingered in Akashi's usually composed eyes, a rare sight that left Mibuchi astonished. This is the first time I've seen him to be surprised. Meanwhile, on Fukuda Sogo's bench, Mokitsuko held out his hand, revealing a reddened palm from receiving Tsuna's powerful pass. "Captain, look what your pass did to my hand." Mochizuki sighed, acknowledging the numbness in his hand, but there was undeniable pride in his expression. Despite the discomfort, his eyes reflected the satisfaction of finally experiencing such a pass from Tsuna. The team chuckled amusedly at Mochizuki's predicament, leaning in to get a closer look at his hand. "Ha ha ha, that was surprising. I thought you'd fumble." Ishida teased, earning a displeased frown from Mochizuki. Retorting, Mochizuki asserted, "I would understand if it was you, but the great me? Never." "Huh? You're barely able to receive his pass, yet you're already this arrogant." Ishida fired back, escalating their banter. Their argument continued, Agiwara attempting to mediate in case it got out of hand, but the two seemed oblivious to his efforts. He could only offer a wry smile, feeling a bit helpless. "Enough of it," Tsuna calmly spoke, instantly silencing their bickering. Agiwara let out a sigh of relief at Tsuna's effective intervention as he wiped a sweat that rolled on his forehead. Nijimura simply shook his head at the ongoing banter, accustomed to such exchanges among his teammates. On the other hand, Haizaki wore a disappointed expression, seemingly wanting the argument to escalate into a physical altercation. "Well, they should be wary of your pass now," Alexandra commented with a smile. "Although they'd be wary of it, that will not change our rhythm. Just focus on your role for now." Tsuna nodded in agreement. His gaze shifted towards Yasunhai, and then he turned to Mochizuki, stating, "They might not have realized it yet, but once they do, they'll come through Himuro." Mochizuki nodded in understanding as he could feel the pressure on his shoulder. Mochizuki glanced at Yasunhai as he recalled Weilu who marked him during their attack before. It was a clever strategy on Yasunhai with Himuro swapping positions with Weilu, a towering player standing at 203 cm, to thwart any attempts at three-pointers. In contrast, Fukuda Sogo didn't possess such a luxury, lacking a player with comparable height in their lineup. Meanwhile, on the Yasunhai bench, Araki donned a thoughtful expression, gripping her Japanese wooden sword tightly as she contemplated what to do in this situation. "He is becoming annoying. So troublesome." Murasakibara's annoyance was evident as he silently grumbled. His deep frown betrayed his irritation, and he couldn't help but express his annoyance with peculiar facial expressions and muttered discontent. "Whatever, I'll win this time." Observing Murasakibara's unusual behavior, the others exchanged perplexed glances. It was a rare sight to see him affected to this extent. Himuro wore a wry smile and simply shook his head at Murasakibara's antics. Okamura chuckled as he patted Murasakibara's shoulder, encouraging, "That's the spirit. Let's go." "Ha ha ha." Lu sighed while Fukui rolled his eyes in annoyance. "All right, I need your attention here." Araki slammed her Japanese wooden sword and grabbed everyone's attention as the resounding slam of her Japanese wooden sword echoed. The abrupt noise instantly refocused the players, drawing their attention back to her. Fukui, in particular, couldn't help but nervously gulp, his past experiences with Araki's wooden sword punishment replaying in his mind. The ominous sound had a peculiar effect on him, a constant reminder of the consequences of breaking the rules. Stay vigilant against their players. Once they breach your defensive range, lock your focus on them, especially if their captain did those tricky passes again, Araki directed as she recalled that elusive pass beyond that of a high school level. Her main reason for calling the timeout was to get them to process what was going on faster and calmer. With a hand crossed on her chest, she added, "As for our attack, let's try it from within first since Murasakibara was there." Everyone on the team agreed with the plan as they nodded in understanding. The referee signaled for them to return to the court, prompting both teams to make their way back. Before dispersing, Araki singled out Okamura and conveyed, "If things deviate from the plan, you know your role." Okamura responded with a confident smile, offering a thumbs up, "Got it, coach." Chapter 170, Chapter 168, Thor's Hammer. As the game continued, Yasunhai was on high alert this time. It was especially true for Fukui, who dribbled the ball as he glanced at Tsuna, who was approaching him. The pressure he felt standing before the captain of Fukuda Sogo Academy was intense as sweat drenched his back. His instinct was screaming to him not to delay it any longer before Tsuna locked him in his place as he passed the ball immediately. This guy, is he really just a high school student? Fukui knew if he grabbed the ball any longer, Tsuna would have snatched it away from his grasp. He understood he wouldn't be able to come out unscathed. Receiving the ball, Himuro took a deep breath as he focused even more on the game. Mochizuki reacted quickly as he sealed away Himuro's path. Mochizuki knew that Himuro's graceful moves could momentarily entrance anyone with the fluidity of his opponent's play, making it look completely harmless while it was deadly. However, Himuro's elegant stride still be able to carry him past Mochizuki, showcasing his finesse on the court. It's still beautiful to look at. With a frown etched on his face, Mochizuki shifted his body and swiftly chased after Himuro. He understood that the match demanded not just admiration but swift reactions. As Himuro entered his shooting range, a sense of awareness tingled at the back of his mind. Sensing a looming presence behind him, he decided to pass the ball swiftly. When Himuro turned to look at the side, Mochizuki's figure was already there. He seemed to be thoroughly prepared to stop Himuro's shot. He's also not bad. Himuro acknowledged the prowess of Fukuda Sogo's players, recognizing that agility and quick reaction times were their inherent traits. The ball left his hands and found its way to Lu, who received it seamlessly. Without wasting a moment, Lu, in perfect synchronization, sent the ball directly to Murasakibara, who was stationed under the basket. Holding the ball in his massive hand, Murasakibara's typical nonchalant expression shifted to one of seriousness. He felt the presence of the immovable force that was Nijimura, diligently keeping him in check right behind him. Recognizing the proximity of the basket, a gleam of determination sparked in Murasakibara's eyes. Without wasting a moment, he decided to unleash his special technique. With his back facing the basket, Murasakibara propelled himself upward, his tall frame rotating gracefully in mid-air. The momentum generated flair to his move as he forcefully slammed the ball into the basket. In the midst of his impressive dunk, Murasakibara's deep voice rang out, "Thor's hammer!" The stadium erupted with excitement as the crowd cheered, captivated by the sheer power and spectacle of Murasakibara's flashy move. However, to everyone's surprise, Nijimura's eyes were cold and calculating. Instead of starting to block the dunk immediately, he maintained a stern gaze on Murasakibara's form mid-air. As Murasakibara's arm began its downward motion, a flash of determination sparked in Nijimura's eyes. Timing his move precisely, Nijimura didn't attempt to stop Murasakibara outright. Instead, he subtly utilized the power generated from his jump to alter Murasakibara's slamming direction. The collision between their forces created a thunderous sound that resonated through the court, sending shockwaves of surprise through the audience. Murasakibara's thunderous slam slightly missed its mark as the ball hit the edge of the basket, creating an unexpected rebound that sent it bouncing back toward the court. "He's actually that good." Miyagi expressed his disbelief, seated alongside his Shutoko teammates. Takao nodded in agreement, sharing Miyagi's sentiment. While their previous encounter with Fukuda Sogo in a friendly game highlighted Fukuda Sogo's exceptional prowess as a team, Tsuna's attention-grabbing performance had overshadowed the capabilities of the other players. That created a misconception about the team's individual strengths, while in reality, each of them was not someone you could take lightly. Even Midorima found himself taken aback by Nijimura's unexpected prowess against Murasakibara. Adjusting his glasses, he mused, "I already knew he was skilled, but to handle Murasakibara like this? It appears I've been underestimating him by a considerable margin." Observing Nijimura's performance, a new level of seriousness shone in Midorima's gaze. Ayamine, who was sitting with Siren, raised an eyebrow in surprise. Though, he was not entirely shocked as he vividly remembered what it was like to be marked by Nijimura. That guy might not be as ridiculous as Tsuna, but he's quite sharp and witty, he thought while glancing at the unfolding game. Nijimura, despite feeling the stinging impact of facing Murasakibara's powerful move, maintained his composure. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Nijimura's eyes sharpened with focus. He swiftly closed the distance between himself and the rebounding ball with agile and precise movements. Snatching it in mid-air, Nijimura seamlessly transitioned into an offensive play, moving forward with determination. Murasakibara's swift reaction was unexpected, showcasing his agility despite his height. Closing the distance with surprising speed, he pursued Nijimura relentlessly. Nijimura widened his eyes in surprise as he sensed the looming presence of Murasakibara closing in on his side. Reacting with a burst of agility, Nijimura sidestepped, forcefully putting strain on his feet to execute a sudden move. Murasakibara widened his eyes in surprise at how sharp Nijimura's sense was. He altered his movement under such speed and still be okay? That's ridiculous. Lu looked at Nijimura's figure in disbelief. Holy shit, is he all right? That should hurt his feet, though. The sentiment echoed throughout the audience, who erupted into thunderous cheers at the unfolding spectacle. On the other hand, Nijimura found himself taken aback. He couldn't help but find Murasakibara's existence to be ridiculous. He's got the ideal physique for basketball, the strength to match, and now he's surprisingly fast, too? Isn't this guy practically born for basketball? Nijimura's quick footwork allowed him to evade Murasakibara's outstretched hand, narrowly avoiding the imminent threat of having the ball snatched away. He then sighed as he passed the ball toward Tsuna. Why? Are you scared? Tsuna posed a question to Nijimura with his gaze while securing the ball. Nijimura seemed to comprehend the unspoken inquiry, shaking his head with a smile. That's not it. It's more about pacing myself against such a monster. I might not last too long otherwise. Tsuna chuckled softly, the ball swaying rhythmically in his relaxed grip. Fair point. It'd be quite a hassle to have to sub you out early, indeed. Chapter 171, Chapter 169, Subduing the Giant. Tsuna dribbled the ball with an air of calmness, and Fukui made his move, applying pressure and remaining on high alert. Despite Tsuna's apparent relaxation in the face of Fukui's defensive effort, the latter was hesitant and lacked the confidence to make a meaningful impact on his team, audibly swallowing nervously. Tsuna could see that Yasunhei was well prepared this time as they all scattered into their defensive zone. A light smile played on his lips as he observed the strategic positioning of the opposing team. His attention shifted to Murasakibara, locked in a confrontation with Nijimura. Not a bad formation, Tsuna remarked, surprising Fukui with his sincere acknowledgement of Yasunhei's defensive efforts. The unexpected praise left a ripple of disbelief among the players. Do you think this game was just a walk in the park? Fukui gritted his teeth in frustration. However, before Yasunhei was able to react to the unexpected praise, Tsuna's arm moved swiftly as the ball transformed into a blur, leaving them momentarily taken aback. Himuro's face displayed a mixture of emotions as he watched the play unfold. We were ready for his pass, but it still managed to catch us off guard. How in the world did he pull that off? Fukui shared the sentiment, his eyes widening as he saw Haizaki confidently receive the ball with excitement gleaming in his gaze. Despite Yasunhei anticipating Tsuna's elusive pass, the actual execution still left them astonished. Haizaki was taken aback while holding the ball as a numbing sensation spread through his palm. He couldn't help but acknowledge the strength behind the pass, seems like it was just as Mochizuki had described, such an intense pass. Haizaki's confidence surged despite the numbing sensation in his palm. His grin widened as he dribbled the ball with remarkable speed against Okamura, who had sweat rolled down his face. He swiftly moved to the right as he employed a quick body rotation and deftly evaded Okamura's defense. The gap closed rapidly as he neared the basket. Leaping up, he ferociously slammed the ball toward the hoop with intense determination. The court vibrated with the echo of the resounding impact. Nijimura observed their opponent's expression as he shook his head lightly. I wonder what their reaction would be if they knew that Tsuna was still holding back his strength in those passes. He slightly chuckled as he went back to his position. The scoreboard now displayed 7-0, with Fukuda Sogo taking advantage of the game. As the game continued, Yasunhei realized that Murasakibara couldn't score points for them, with Nijimura persistently and cleverly blocking Murasakibara's attempt. Nijimura could feel his body strain from facing Murasakibara. No one else saw Nijimura's struggle besides Tsuna in the court. However, among the spectators, there was one exception. Nijimura won't endure this till the end. A composed voice echoed, breaking the hushed silence as it observed the unfolding game. Confusion edged Mibuchi's face as he queried, "What do you mean by that, SEI?" Mibuchi couldn't help but ask, clearly couldn't quite fathom how Akashi reached such a conclusion. From his standpoint, Nijimura seemed fine, while Murasakibara appeared unsettled. It might seem like Nijimura is holding his own against Murasakibara, Akashi commented, his eyes briefly flicking toward the scoreboard, which indicated Fukuda Sogo's current dominance in the game. But facing Murasakibara's Thor hammer is not a matter of technique alone. Akashi acknowledged that what Nijimura was attempting demanded a level of precision and reaction speed beyond the capabilities of an average player. However, the sheer magnitude of Murasakibara's raw strength posed a significant challenge. In the court, Tsuna just let it be as he knew Nijimura better than anyone. Similar to how he didn't underestimate Murasakibara's physical strength, Tsuna wouldn't overlook Nijimura's stamina. Najimura's martial arts training with sabas was a rigorous journey filled with demanding exercises that pushed the boundaries of physical endurance. He endured challenges that seemed unimaginable to others, shaping him into a formidable force. The rest of the team wasn't anxious about Nijimura either. He was the only one who could handle the intense training that Tsuna, their captain, had gone through. Those workouts were so harsh that just watching them made others feel sick. However, despite all that, Nijimura could complete these workouts persistently. The ball was again under Fukuda Sogo's control, held securely in Tsuna's skilled hands. Seeing Tsuna holding the ball, Okamura was alerted. "Shit! Get back fast!" He swiftly signaled the team to regroup, prompting the players to immediately retreat to their respective positions along the defensive line. The opposing Yasenhai defense tightened in anticipation of the next move. Seeing their alertness, Tsuna's demeanor remained calm. With a nonchalant flick of his wrist, the ball transformed into a blur, moving with unparalleled speed as it weaved through the court. Its destination was clear: Nijimura. The ball landed securely in Nijimura's hands, but he wasn't without a mark. Murasakibara was there with his towering figure. Murasakibara didn't say anything this time as he was determined to stop Nijimura. Nijimura's senses were entirely online as he swiftly maneuvered, utilizing his agility to break past Murasakibara's defensive reach. With a burst of speed, Nijimura jumped for a forceful slam. However, Murasakibara wasn't an easy obstacle. Even though Nijimura gave it his all, he felt Murasakibara's imposing presence behind him. The clash in midair unfolded, and Murasakibara successfully blocked Nijimura's dunk attempt with an unyielding defense. The crowd held its breath, witnessing the intense struggle between two powerhouses on the basketball court as the ball ricocheted off the backboard following Murasakibara's block, and Liu efficiently secured the rebound. Without wasting a moment, he swiftly passed it to Himuro. The team had quickly assessed the situation, realizing that, with Nijimura effectively containing Murasakibara, their best chance to close the score gap was through Himuro's offensive prowess. Meanwhile, as both players touched down on the court, Nijimura couldn't conceal his frown, contemplating, "Looks like the usual methods won't cut it, hey." Turning to head back to his position, Nijimura caught sight of Murasakibara's smug expression directed at him, causing him to halt in his tracks abruptly. Aware that Murasakibara's behavior resembled that of a child, Nijimura felt the veins in his temples pulsating with annoyance. His lips twitched, and he shot Murasakibara an irritated smile, muttering, "Kid or not, I'll give you a proper beating later." Chapter 172, Chapter 170, Closing the Gap. The momentum on the court had shifted after Himuro received a precise pass from Liu. He wasted no time, and with the ball in his hands, he began to dribble forward, determined to take full advantage of the newfound opportunity to catch the gap in their scores. With a focused gaze, Mochizuki positioned himself to prevent Himuro's advance. Confidence radiated from Himuro's eyes as he elegantly dribbled with grace. "Right, this should be fake," Mochizuki thought as he took a deep breath. Himuro's movements were fluid, and he gracefully strode to the left, leaving Mochizuki momentarily uncertain. Thinking Himuro's move was fake, Mochizuki widened his eyes in disbelief as he realized the reality. "Shit, not a fake." The court seemed to freeze for a moment as Mochizuki, caught off guard, reacted swiftly. He turned his body around, determination etched on his face and chased back to recover. Fully aware of Mochizuki's reaction speed, Himuro advanced forward with unwavering confidence. The court seemed to shrink as he approached his shooting range, and Mochizuki, determined to make amends, closed in on him. As Himuro reached the optimal distance, his body moved with a subtle grace, seamlessly transitioning into his shooting form. The crowd held its breath, sensing the impending climax of the play. Having caught up, Mochizuki leaped into the air, extending his arms to block Himuro's shot. However, to his astonishment, Himuro exhibited a masterful deception. Himuro's hand, which seemed poised to release the ball, had never held it in the first place. "What are those fakes? Those look so real," Mochizuki thought as frustration etched into his face. Himuro avoided Mochizuki's block attempt in a swift sidestep, leaving the defender momentarily suspended in mid-air. The gymnasium erupted with gasps and cheers as the realization dawned on Mochizuki. Without missing a beat, Himuro smoothly transitioned into his actual shooting form. The ball left his hands in a perfect arc, sailing toward the basket with precision. The net swayed as the ball cleanly passed through, scoring a dazzling basket. Himuro landed gracefully, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. Mochizuki was still mid-air from his blocking attempt and could only watch helplessly as Himuro's fake had thoroughly broken his defense apart. Finally, they bite back. "Let's go, Yasunhai!" A surge of exhilaration rippled through the crowd as Yasunhai successfully scored against Fukuda Sogo. The spectators erupted into cheers as the gymnasium buzzed with energy as supporters from both sides reveled in the unfolding intensity of the match. "That guy is your brother, right, Kagami?" Izuki inquired, his gaze fixed on Himuro's graceful movements on the court. Kagami nodded with a mix of pride and complexity. "Yes, not by blood, but he's like a brother to me." Kagane's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "He's really good. Looks like talent recognizes talent, hey?" Kagami remained silent, his mind replaying the memory of Himuro's impressive shot from their Tokyo street ball encounter echoing in his mind. He pondered, he hasn't revealed everything yet. Kagami yearned for a chance to settle unresolved matters with Himuro, mending the rift between them. That was why, deep down, he was hoping for Yasunhai, Himuro's team, to triumph over Fukuda Sogo. But simultaneously, the prospect of facing Tsuna, a familiar name and figure ever since his time in the US, made his blood boil. "I shouldn't overthink it for now," Kagami thought, shaking his head to dispel the distracting thoughts. In the court, Mochizuki's eyes remained fixed on Himuro's departing figure, his fist clenching with excitement. "He's actually this good, hey?" Mochizuki mused, his competitive spirit ignited by the challenge posed by Himuro. Meanwhile, Tsuna observed Mochizuki in silence as the game unfolded, with Tsuna calmly dribbling the ball. "Good. It seems I didn't need to intervene personally, hey?" Tsuna thought silently, acknowledging Fukui's positioning to thwart his progress. As the game continued, Fukuda Sogo kept the score advantage by the end of the first quarter at 27-18. Nijimura would sometimes find himself blocked by Murasakibara while he had completely suppressed the tall player. On the other hand, Himuro was having a sweet time by dominating Mochizuki and narrowing the gap in their score. Both teams settled on their respective benches, seizing a moment of respite to gear up for the impending quarter. A wry chuckle escaped his lips as Nijimura glanced at his trembling hand. That guy is almost on the same level as Silver when it comes to physical capability. Yet, Tsuna's words lingered in his mind, a subtle unease creeping beneath his skin. Considering Tsuna has never been wrong so far, I might not endure until the final quarter if Murasakibara stops holding back. Nijimura contemplated, beads of sweat tracing a path down his face. "How was it? Could you last until the next quarter?" Tsuna's voice cut through Nijimura's contemplation, drawing his attention back to the present. He glanced down at his hand, the physical toll evident. A momentary surprise flashed across Nijimura's face before he mustered a smile. "Don't worry, I might even last until the third quarter." Tsuna nodded in acknowledgement, saying, "No need for that, I only need you to keep him company until the second quarter." "I see, then I can last until the end if it comes to that." Understanding the instruction, Nijimura responded. He didn't even question why, as he understood his job was to receive and execute the order swiftly. They should still try to take advantage of Tatsuya's focal point. Tsuna addressed the team. His words met with unanimous nods. This was particularly significant for Mochizuki, whose primary responsibility was to suppress Himuro from making any more points for Yasunhai. Sitting at the sidelines, Alexandra offered her silent agreement, a subtle nod conveying her understanding. Turning his attention to Mochizuki, Tsuna continued, "Kazuhiro, I need you to understand that Tatsuya hasn't revealed everything in his play yet." "That's correct. Tatsuya is a shooting guard. Though I don't know what he's developed over the years, he should have something special up his sleeve." Alexandra injected a serious tone into her words. "We'll see how it plays out later," Tsuna smiled. He then turned back to the team, adding, "Simply going through Tatsuya wouldn't be enough for them. They would most likely aim for a rebound play." Tsuna grasped the pride and ambition embedded in a team like Yasunhai. They wouldn't be satisfied with merely catching up. Yasunhai would definitely aim to seize the momentum and dominate the game. With 3 2-meter-tall players, utilizing their advantage in rebounds was a logical move. "Since that was the case, I'll leave Okamura and Lu to both of you." Turning toward Hizaki and Agiwara, Tsuna continued. Both of them nodded in sync, with their eyes gleaming with excitement. Chapter 173, Chapter 171, Puzzling Intentions. As both teams returned to the court, the game continued as Tsuna dribbled the ball in his hand. The court was alive with the game's rhythm as Tsuna precisely dribbled the ball. His eyes scanned the court, assessing the unfolding situation. I could see why they were called the Shield of Aegis, Tsuna thought silently. Even with Fukuda Sogo's relentless offense, the looming presence of Murasakibara beneath the basket meant that scoring within close range wouldn't be an easy feat. However, with a glance at Fukui, who was diligently marking him, Tsuna shook his head in response. With a sudden shift in momentum, he smoothly transitioned into a shooting motion, catching Fukui off guard. "You're standing a bit too far," Tsuna remarked calmly as he released the ball with a flick of his wrist. "Shit!" Widening his gaze in disbelief at Tsuna's unexpected shooting motion, Fukui reacted swiftly. He lunged forward and jumped up to block the shot, but it was too late. The ball sailed through the air, arcing beautifully from beyond the three-point line. With a satisfying swish, it found its mark, passing through the net. The crowd cheered as Tsuna's well-calculated shot added crucial points to his team's score. Fukui landed on the court, still processing the unexpected turn of events. He can do a three-pointer as well. Midorima, watching these from the audience, just slightly scoffed as he thought, of course, he'd take advantage of that carelessness. Tsuna wasn't the type to shoot three-pointers, but Midorima knew Tsuna would decisively take advantage of any openings he could see. Back on the court, the frustration lingered in Fukui's mind as he possessed the ball. Clicking his tongue in annoyance, he muttered, "All right, so in offense, I can't get close to him, but in defense, I gotta do the opposite, hey." Determination edged on his face, Fukui prepared to take matters into his own hands. As Fukui found himself a bit too close to Fukuda Sogo's defensive line, Tsuna approached calmly, eyeing the situation. Sensing the impending challenge, Fukui reacted alertly, taking a risky shot. With a swift and reckless release, the ball left Fukui's hands. Tsuna, caught off guard by the unexpected move, immediately burst into action. His agile form closed the distance rapidly as he sprinted towards the airborne ball. Unfortunately for Tsuna, the ball sailed high, reaching the basket before ultimately missing as it bounced off the rim. "What the hell is that guy doing?" Kotaro couldn't help but mumble out loud, his disbelief evident as he witnessed Fukui's reckless shooting form. The others from Rakuzen High in the audience seemed to share his sentiment, exchanging puzzled glances. Even someone like Kotaro, who excelled in close-range shots, felt that Fukui's approach was too forceful and utterly foolish. That was not what he was after, though. "That guy didn't care about whether he made the shot or not," Mibuchi remarked, shaking his head gently. His eyes followed the trajectory of the ball that had bounced off the rim. "It was nice if he made it, it was fine if he didn't because they have their players waiting for a rebound anyway." The strategy became clear. Yasen High was playing to their advantage, leveraging their formidable height. Fukui's shoot was a quick release, prioritizing speed over precision. The aim was not solely to score but to set up a rebound play. As the ball ricocheted off the rim, Okamura and Lu, both towering figures, immediately went over Hizaki and Agiwara. With determination, they put their strength into their feet, aiming to secure the rebounding ball. Hizaki gritted his teeth, feeling the imposing figure of Okamura rising in front of him like an insurmountable wall. His gaze shot up to the ball, his mind racing to find an opening in the aerial contest. Glancing at Agiwara, a silent exchange of glances occurred between them. Their eyes flashed with understanding as Okamura and Lu leaped for the rebound. In that crucial moment, Hizaki, driven by determination, leaped up to contest the ball in the air. Agiwara bided his time, strategically repositioning himself for what was to come. As Hizaki ascended, the reality set in. He couldn't reach the ball. Clicking his tongue in frustration, he spoke, "What a foo ** King Gorilla." Hizaki didn't seem truly mad, instead, a smirk formed on his face, revealing a predator's satisfaction. "Ha ha ha, as expected, your appearance matches your words." Okamura responded with a laugh. Okamura's eyes gleamed with excitement as he landed with the ball in his hand. However, the excitement was short-lived. Lu seemed to realize something as his expression panicked as he shouted, "Captain! On your left!" Out of nowhere, Agiwara's figure appeared swift and unexpected. With a precise stroke, he dislodged the ball from Okamura's hand. Okamura then widened his eyes in surprise as he exclaimed, "Shit! Ha ha ha, what a fool!" Hizaki mocked as he moved. Seizing the opportune moment, Hizaki, akin to a predator waiting for its prey, utilized his agility. With a burst of speed, he dashed forward, catching the ball mid-air. The gymnasium buzzed with the unexpected turn of events as Haizaki, now in possession, streaked down the court. Haizaki streaked down the court with unmatched agility, leaving everyone from Yasenhai scrambling to chase after him. However, their efforts were in vain, with Murasakibara now attacking alongside the team, leaving no one to stop Haizaki's advance. With a resounding dunk, Haizaki slammed the ball into the basket, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The team observing from the sidelines wore serious expressions as they witnessed Fukuda Sogo skillfully suppressing Yasenhai. Among the spectators, Midorima of Shutoku couldn't help but glance at Tsuna's figure on the court. This must be his opening, he thought. Tsuna had a way of instilling hope before ruthlessly suppressing the opposition, leaving no openings for recovery. However, a subtle sense of concern crept into Midorima's thoughts. Something felt amiss. He couldn't help but notice Nijimura, who seemed to start getting out of breath. Midorima wondered, if this kept going on, he wouldn't last until the third quarter. Tsuna should have noticed this. Midorima was aware of Tsuna's sharpness and attention to detail, which was why he found it puzzling that Tsuna might overlook such a crucial aspect. What are you planning this time, Tsuna? Adjusting his glasses with a thoughtful expression, Midorima contemplated. The game continued with intensity on the court, and Midorima's frown deepened. Chapter 174, Chapter 172, title at the end of the chapter. Yasenhai's coach gritted her teeth, a thoughtful expression etched on her face as she observed their carefully planned rebound strategy being easily countered as if the opposing team had anticipated it. Frustration lingered as she turned her gaze towards Alexandra, who stood on the Fukuda Sogo's bench. She doesn't appear to be good with her brain. How unexpected! The coach thought, contemplating the unexpected turn of events. Alexandra seemed to be able to sense Araki's thoughts as she sharply turned in Araki's direction. A moment of tension hung in the air as Araki seemed to feel a sense of guilt. Feeling caught, looked away, nervously whistling while clutching her wooden sword. As the game continued, Yasenhai recognized the need to regain momentum and find a way to score. The ball was passed to Himuro, their key player with the skills to potentially turn the tide of the match. Himuro took a deep breath, the weight of the game pressing on his shoulders. Despite the pressure, his eyes remained calm as he exchanged glances with Mochizuki, the vigilant defender marking him. Can't believe all that does not faze him, Himuro thought, feeling surprised at the calmness reflected in Mochizuki's face. It was an unexpected sight, as most players who struggled against Himuro's offensive prowess would display frustration or anger, if not both. However, Mochizuki remained composed, and a spark of excitement glimmered within his pupils, catching Himuro's attention. After exhaling a long breath to focus, Himuro dribbled the ball with a smile on his face as he was confident in his skills. Mochizuki responded by intensifying the pressure, closing the distance between them. Unfazed, Himuro continued to move with elegance, smoothly dribbling the ball past Mochizuki's defense. To the surprise of Yasenhai's players, Mochizuki held his ground. The most astonishing of all was Himuro's figure, which had just gone past Mochizuki, disappearing and reappearing in front of Mochizuki's still form. The drive was a fake, and somehow, Mochizuki had seen through it. A thought crossed Himuro's mind, is it a coincidence? Did he finally awaken it? Nijimura was also surprised to see this. Himuro's expression shifted, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a frown as he maintained a firm grip on the ball, dribbling it with ease. His glance at Mochizuki revealed a level of seriousness that surpassed their previous interactions. This time, there was no room for him to underestimate his opponent. With elegant crossovers, Himuro moved to the right, and this time, it wasn't a feint. The intensity in his eyes matched the gravity of the situation. However, to his surprise, Mochizuki seamlessly followed through with his movements, seeing through the feints with remarkable precision. Gritting his teeth, Himuro thought, he truly could see through my fakes. Seeing Mochizuki effortlessly anticipate and see through Himuro's feints, Fukui couldn't contain his disbelief. What? How did he see through Himuro's fake? He exclaimed, his surprise echoing through the court. On the other hand, Tsuna, witnessing the turn of events, smirked in response. A silent exchange of glances occurred between him and Nijimura. It's time to get a bit more sweaty, Shuzo, Tsuna remarked. Nijimura nodded in agreement, his eyes gleaming with newfound anticipation. Meanwhile, as Himuro determined to break through, he decided to abandon the element of deception. No more faking moves then! Himuro exclaimed, abruptly rotating his body in the opposite direction. The unexpected maneuver prompted Mochizuki to react, realizing the need to adjust his defense. With the space he needed, Himuro suddenly stepped back and prepared for a shot. Mochizuki, realizing his oversight, cursed, "Shit, I was careless, I forgot he had reached his shooting range." Closing the distance, Mochizuki leaped up to block the shot, but it was too late. Elegant in his shooting motion, Himuro released the ball with ease. The crowd held its breath as the ball soared through the air, finding its mark with a swish. "Great shoot, as usual, Himuro." Okamura complimented as they went back to their position. As the game continued, Tsuna received the ball, dribbling it with deliberate slowness. He turned his attention to Mochizuki as he spoke, "Keep your head cool, Kazuhiro." Mochizuki was taken aback before he nodded in silence. He then took a deep breath as he muttered, "Relax my form, sharpen my mind." Tsuna nodded, seeing this as he turned to Nijimura, "We'll go for it." "I see, I understand." Nijimura nodded with a surprised expression. As Fukuda Sogo advanced forward, Yasunhei sensed a mounting pressure, an impending force that was coming at them. Okamura frowned, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Is it just me, or are these guys becoming more intimidating?" However, Tsuna's sharpness persisted. Observing that his team had positioned themselves effectively, he abruptly changed his dribbling pace. Fukui could only widen his eyes in astonishment as Tsuna's dribbling speed surpassed his expectations, leaving Fukui struggling to match the pace. What's up with his dribbling speed? Was he holding back since the first quarter? Fukui wondered, a shiver running down his spine. The abrupt acceleration had caught Fukui completely off guard. It wasn't just Fukui, the Yasunhei players themselves appeared to be taken aback by this unexpected burst of speed. Tsuna's eyes remained cold as he drove to the right, and Fukui, in a rush to impede Tsuna's advance, followed his figure closely. Yet, that decision proved to be a grievous error. As Fukui shadowed Tsuna's movement, Tsuna unexpectedly stepped back, a move that caught Fukui off balance. His feet stumbled over themselves, and in an instant, Fukui found himself crashing to the ground, bewildered and unable to fathom what had just transpired. As he looked up at Tsuna's composed figure gliding past him effortlessly, Fukui couldn't help but mutter in disbelief, "What on earth just happened?" After witnessing Tsuna's flashy breakthrough past Fukui's defense, with no other apparent option, Okamura burst forward as he was determined to impede Tsuna's way. However, to Okamura's surprise, the ball in Tsuna's hand suddenly vanished with a flick of his hand. Okamura's eyes widened in sheer disbelief as the spherical comet streaked in a straight line to the basket, defying any attempts to intercept it. In the face of what appeared to be an unstoppable force, a hand materialized with exquisite precision, slamming down on the ball. The resounding slam echoed through the court, leaving Okamura in awe of the seemingly supernatural finesse exhibited by Tsuna. Nijimura. In utter disbelief, Okamura directed his gaze towards the hand that had gracefully intervened. The gymnasium itself seemed to hold its breath, enveloped in an eerie silence that mirrored the astonishment shared by everyone present. Title: Zenith Strike. Chapter 175, Chapter 173, The Aegis Crumbling Defense. What did I just see? That's unreal. The crowd fell into a momentary silence, collectively processing the spectacle they had just witnessed, a lightning-quick alley-oop they had never seen before. However, the hushed murmurs swiftly gave way to a crescendo of excitement and shock as the gymnasium erupted with a mix of awe and disbelief. What was that? Mibuchi voiced the sentiment shared by many, his expression reflecting his genuine surprise at the sheer speed and precision of the alley-oop. The sentiment resonated with the members of Rakuzenhai, who exchanged bewildered glances. Meanwhile, Akashi's eyes gleamed with a thoughtful light in the commotion. His sharp gaze solely focused on Tsuna's figure as he muttered, "Good, show more of your card, Tsunayashi." Back in the court, Murasakibara's towering figure observed Nijimura with genuine surprise before a frown edged across his face. Just moments ago, he had been closely marking Nijimura, only to find himself bewildered as Nijimura quickly got past Murasakibara's defense without even holding a ball in his hand. It left Murasakibara confused. The confusion deepened as Nijimura leaped toward the basket. However, his confusion was answered by Tsuna's elusive pass. The ball was aimed directly into Nijimura's slamming motion with precision akin to a bullet finding its mark. The seamless coordination between Tsuna and Nijimura unfolded before Murasakibara's eyes, leaving him momentarily taken aback. How did he pull that off? Takao exclaimed, his eyes fixed on Nijimura in shock. The same awe echoed among the Shudoku players beside him, all sharing a moment of disbelief. Midorima shook his head, cutting through the murmurs. That pass was the impressive part. Everyone turned their attention to Midorima as he adjusted his glasses, preparing to share his thoughts. Midorima continued, both plays were good, no doubt. Not everyone can execute that kind of pass. But Nijimura was just going through the motions. As long as his hand was open to receive the pass, his form doesn't matter. Midorima couldn't help but admire Nijimura's unshakable confidence in Tsuna's abilities. Nijimura's unwavering trust in Tsuna's pass to be there precisely as he slammed it down into the basket showcased a profound level of trust and synergy between the two players. The Shudoku team nodded as Midorima explained, and Tsuna, he had to aim precisely, hitting exactly where Nijimura's hand was swinging. His words highlighted the remarkable precision and coordination needed between Tsuna and Nijimura to pull off such a flawless play. Whoa, Kazumaki pulls off something incredible again! Kai's exclaimed with a touch of surprise in his voice. Yet, his eyes sparkled with a peculiar excitement as he observed the unfolding game. Kai's found himself captivated by the unexpected and extraordinary plays showcased by Fukuda Sogo. On his end, Kasumatsu refrained from physically hitting Kai's this time. Instead, he studied Fukuda Sogo's players with a serious expression. His mind churned with thoughts, exploring the possibilities of Fukuda Sogo's depth. Have these guys held back, even during the Inter-High? Or is this something they cooked up specifically for the Winter Cup? Kasumatsu considered different scenarios, contemplating the potential surprises Fukuda Sogo might still have up their sleeves. Scheduled to play on the other court, Kaijo High was preparing for their upcoming game, so they walked down the court toward their designated area for the tournament's second round. Fukui clenched his teeth in frustration as the game pressed on. His focused dribbling carried the weight of the challenge. Darn, can't believe they still have tricks up their sleeves. With a quick look, Fukui spotted Tsuna approaching, prompting a displeased click of his tongue. He swiftly passed the ball to Okamura, whom Hizaki closely marked. Okamura wasted no time and redirected the ball to Murasakibara. Murasakibara, determination evident on his face, muttered, "I'll crush you." He jumped into the air, initiating his signature move, Thor's hammer. Rotating his body, Murasakibara prepared to slam the ball with both hands. However, to his surprise, a strong hand intervened, striking down the ball and diverting its trajectory. Murasakibara missed the basket, gritting his teeth in annoyance as he directed his gaze at Nijimura. If anyone looked closely, within Murasakibara's pupils, a strange glint shimmered, a glint that had never been there before. Fortunate for Yasenhai, Liu positioned himself just right to snag the rebound as the ball bounced off. He snatched it swiftly, yet an unsettling feeling pricked at his senses. As expected, Aguilera darted to swipe the ball away like a shadow in pursuit as Liu instinctively stepped back. Sweat trickled down Liu's face, and under his breath, he grumbled, "Persistent guy." Quick on his feet, Liu promptly passed the ball to Himuro, recognizing that he held the best chance in this critical moment. As the ball settled into Himuro's hands, a weighty sense of the impending moment gripped him. Without a moment's pause, he readied himself to make a move, executing a crossover to elude Mochizuki's defense. However, an unsettling feeling lingered as he glided forward with elegance. Mochizuki mirrored and countered every nuanced step. I know he could see through my fakes, but what's this feeling, Himuro thought, feeling a sense of being watched like a predator stalking its prey. The awareness of Mochizuki's sharp observation settled over him. However, regaining his composure, Himuro knew it was now or never. With determination, he stepped back, rotating his body in the opposite direction, aiming to break past Mochizuki's defense. Relief washed over Himuro as he skillfully bypassed Mochizuki, focusing now on the basket for the upcoming shot. Yet, before he could release the ball, a hand grazed it, causing it to slip out of his grasp. Himuro's disbelief was evident as he glanced at Mochizuki, the culprit. Frustration marked his face as Himuro grumbled, "How did he get even quicker?" With lightning-quick reflexes, Tsuna approached the ball like a ghost, smoothly taking possession with a deft steal or interception. Once he had the ball, Tsuna showed off his super speed and accuracy, effortlessly gliding through the court since there wasn't much defense to slow him down. As Tsuna approached the basket, he gathered his strength and jumped high into the air, defying gravity with an impressive leap. Hanging mid-air, Tsuna pulled off something unexpected as he circled the ball between his legs, surprising everyone with his skill. Descending toward the basket with power and precision, Tsuna slammed the ball through the hoop. The crowd burst into cheers and shouts, filling the stadium with a thunderous roar. Wow! Shouts, cheers, and applause echoed throughout the stadium, showcasing their amazement and admiration for Tsuna's impressive skills. Ha! Look at him showing off! Amin remarked, glancing at Tsuna with a smirk.
Thanks for listening.